Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick DeRay, Chief of the Bureau of Automotive Repair, and I want to welcome all of you today to the Bureau of Automotive Repair Advisory Group meeting for the second quarter of 2026. As most of you know, we hold 4 advisory group meetings throughout the year, sometimes in conjunction with a regulatory workshop. Today, we do not have one scheduled following the meeting, so we will be adjourning approximately at 1 p.m. today. And we'll see how we do with that schedule. Hope everyone's having a wonderful year, great spring. Sun is out and bright and shiny today, so we've avoided the rain today. So welcome to all of you. I do want to begin the meeting with some introductions, and then I'll have some meeting procedures that I'll read after we do that. Let's start with our internal folks. I want to point out a few people. Our moderators, Antoine Billups, for the WebEx portion of our presentation, co-moderator Zach Richardson with the Executive Office of the Bureau of Automotive Repair. Our webcaster, this meeting is being webcast and will be available via recording sometime later next week. Bryce Penny sitting to the kind of the side of the room, in the middle of the room and to the side. And we'll do some staff introductions in a minute, but let's go first around the room today with the advisory group members, starting to my far right.
Les Swizer in for Anthony Bento for the California New Car Dealers Association.
Thank you for pointing that out with the alternate sitting in for the regular attendee. Yes, thank you, Les.
Jack Muladonna on behalf of the California Auto Body Association.
Matt Webb representing the Preventative Automotive Maintenance Association.
Bud Rice with the California Automotive Business Coalition.
Good morning, Dave Kusa with Automotive Service Councils of California. I almost forgot, ASCCA.
Good morning, Ryan Perini on behalf of the California Automotive Wholesalers Association.
And moderator, we will do some introductions of advisory group members attending remotely through the WebEx platform.
Hi, this is the moderator. We do not have any members online right now on WebEx, but as soon as you join, we'll let you guys know. Thank you.
Oh, my apologies. Looks like we have a different moderator than I was informed.
That's all right. I'm co-moderating with Antoine. This is Fabrica.
Okay.
And I'll be assisting my colleague, Antoine.
Oh, you are. Okay. Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Once any additional members come into the meeting at an appropriate time, please advise me and I will make sure they get introduced.
Sure. Thank you so much. We'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And then a few staff introductions. The deputy chiefs in the Bureau of Automotive Repair. Let's see. Clay Leak, Deputy Chief, Smog Check Engineering and Information Services Division. And any direct reports to Clay in that division. Let's see if they're in the room. Mike Sacco, is he here? Mike Sacco is with the Audits and Inspections Branch. Michael Fadling, Technology Services Branch. Garrett Torgerson, I know, is here, Engineering and Research Branch. All right. The next deputy, Linda Jansen, Deputy Chief, Licensing, Administration, and Consumer Assistance Division. Hi, Linda. Karina Myers, recently appointed to our administration branch to fill a vacancy there. She's not here. Denise Cunningham, I know, I see you. Stand up, please. Consumer Assistance Program. That's the repair assistance and vehicle retirement programs. Michael Villarreal, saw him, Licensing and Records Management Program. I saw Tessa Miller too, Executive Affairs Unit. Hi, Tessa. And we'll move to our third deputy, Bill Thomas, Deputy Chief, Field Operations and Enforcement Division. Hey, Bill. Tim Bowden, reporting to him, Northern California Field Operations and Enforcement Branch. Jaime Ramos for the Southern California Field Operations and Enforcement Branch. Patrick Lutfi, Enforcement Operations Branch. That's a centralized Operations for Enforcement. Wayne Ramos, I know I didn't see him. He's with the Forensic Documentation Program and also oversees the Technical Training Unit for the Bureau of Automotive Repair. And I saw Matthew Gibson, Statewide Investigations Branch. And that should do it for our introductions. Thank you, everyone. All right, a few meeting procedures before we begin with our first presentation. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, which ensures that all meetings of state bodies are open and accessible to the public. Before we begin, I'd like to review our standard procedures to help ensure a productive, respectful, and inclusive meeting for all participants. First, to our advisory group members participating remotely, please keep your cameras on for the duration of the meeting to support transparency and engagement. Since we don't have anyone attending just yet remotely, the moment they do appear, we will remind them of that important feature. Each agenda item will include 15 minutes for advisory group member discussion, followed by an opportunity for public comment. During the public comment period for each agenda item, members of the public will have up to 2 minutes to speak on the item. We ask that comments stay focused on the specific agenda item being discussed, and there will be an opportunity to comment on any issues not listed on the agenda later in the meeting under agenda item 10, I believe. Yep. Before providing a public comment, please state your full name and the organization or business you represent. That certainly helps us as well as those who might be listening to the recording from the webcast today at a later date. We ask that all comments, of course, be thoughtful, concise, and respectful. Disruptions will not be allowed, and time limits will be enforced so everyone has an opportunity to speak. I thank you all for your cooperation and participation today. I'll now call up our first presenter, Holly Helsing with the Bar Executive Office, who is going to give us her standing update on legislative and regulatory matters. Good morning, Holly.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Holly, for those of you who don't know me. And we'll go ahead and start with my legislation and regulations update. To let everyone know, the slides on this presentation are current as of April 9th, but I will try to provide the most updated information that I have available. The next slide shows the important legislative dates coming up. May 29th is the last day for each house to pass bills that were introduced in that house. August 31st is the day for each house to pass any bills. September 30th is the last day for the governor to sign or veto bills, and the statutes take effect on January 1st, 2027. These are the 4 bills that we're currently tracking. The first one, Senate Bill 988, known as the Motor Vehicle Glass Act, would establish new requirements for windshield repair and replacement. You can go to the next slide. And requires shops to notify customers if their vehicle has an ADAS system, the Advanced Driver Assistance System, and if calibration is required after the repair. Shops must also provide written notice of calibration outcomes on itemized invoices. On April 16th, this bill was re-referred to the Committee on Appropriations, and there is a hearing set for April 27th. The next one, SB 1112, since this presentation was published, there has been significant amendments, and we expect more, but as currently written, this bill raises fees and fines on towing companies and storage facilities who are found to have acted unlawfully. That's where this bill stands right now, so these slides are outdated currently. So the next, yeah.
The bill was just amended last week, so yeah, we haven't obviously updated the slides because they were posted to 10 days before the meeting in compliance with the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act requirements.
So I'll move on to the next one, SB 1392. This is the smog check exemption for collector motor vehicles. This bill would redefine a collector motor vehicle as one that is at least 35 years old and is used primarily in shows, parades, charitable functions, and historical exhibitions, and is not used as the owner's primary mode of transportation. The fourth provision listed here on the slide was removed with the latest amendments. The bill no longer requires that proof of insurance as a collector motor vehicle be submitted to the DMV. However, thank you. The proof of insurance does still need to be submitted to BAR. This bill would no longer require that a vehicle be owned by a collector as defined in the vehicle code, and would exempt collector motor vehicles manufactured before 1981 from the biennial smog check inspection. This bill would also extend the biennial exemption by one model year for 5 years, ending with model year 1985, beginning on January 1st, 2028, and ending on January 1st, 2032. Finally, this bill would continue to allow collector motor vehicles 35 model years and older that are not eligible for the biennial exemption to be eligible for an abbreviated smog check inspection. Just yesterday, this bill was re-referred to the Appropriations Committee. The next one is SB 1445. This is a technical cleanup bill that allows for a written estimate to be in electronic format for automotive repair transactions. And this is actually already authorized in BAR regulations, but this this provision just clarifies our authority in statute. And that is all I have for legislation. Do you want me to continue on?
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next portion of this is our regulation packages. These are pending regulation packages. The first two, the biometric device updates and the change of address requirements packages, have both been approved by OAL and will both take effect on July 1st. The biometric device package updates the smog check manual and the vehicle safety systems inspection manual to add the words "or newer" to the permitted types of the biometric palm vein scanner model, so that as newer models become available, they may be used in addition to the originally listed model. You can go to the next and the next one. The other approved one is the change of address package. This just clarifies timeframes for reporting material changes. Specifically, the notice of a change of address shall be provided to the Bureau within 14 days, and notice of other material changes within 30 days. The next package is our storage fees charged by ARDs. And this package, as most of you know, brings together existing laws from the Business and Professions Code, Civil Code, and Vehicle Code governing storage fees. The regulations would require that storage fees be reasonable when they may be charged, and require that an ARD store a vehicle at its primary address. Primary business address. These regulations would also require an ARD to provide an itemized invoice for storage fees, to post their daily storage fee, and report their daily storage fee to the Bureau every year when renewing their registration. If an ARD has a motor carrier permit, they must also post the towing and storage fees access notice. Next slide, BAR will create a website tool to show the average and median storage fees by a given locale, using defined geographic areas around each ARD. And as most of you do know, we've had 4 public workshops regarding this package, and the 45-day public comment period ended on December 31st. And then based on comments we received, we did modify portions of the text and we had an additional 15-day public comment period based on those modifications. And that comment period ended on April 13th. We're working with DCA Legal to submit the package to OAL for final approval and adoption. And we hope and expect, hopefully, to have the package adopted by the end of summer or early fall of this year. The next package is our airbag safety package. And this would prohibit an ARD from manufacturing, installing, or selling any airbag that has been previously deployed, has an electrical fault, includes a component designed to mislead someone into believing that a functional airbag has been installed, or displays a mark identical or similar to the genuine mark of a motor vehicle manufacturer without their authorization. And an ARD shall restore an airbag to its original operating condition as designed by the OEM. Let's see. An ARD may only purchase an airbag replacement part from either the OEM, a supplier or reseller authorized by the OEM, whose airbag parts are not subject to a recall. And an ARD may also purchase from an automotive dismantler licensed by the DMV, so long that the airbag has not been previously deployed and shows no indications of damage or tampering. And the vehicle that the airbag came from can't have any outstanding airbag-related recalls. And an ARD must retain receipts for all parts, airbag parts received or purchased. This package, we're working with DCA Legal to begin the public comment period. The next two packages are new to my presentation. And starting with the towing authorization package, this would require an ARD that performs or contracts for a towing service to obtain customer authorization for any towing fees prior to the towing service being performed. It would require that an ARD who maintains a motor carrier permit to obtain any towing fee authorization on a separate document from any repair authorization. And it requires an ARD to list any storage and towing related charges as separate line items on an invoice. This package is also undergoing review by DCA Legal. And the last package pertains to business information updates. This package would require an ARD applicant to provide a telephone number for the physical location of the business and a business email address. And it would also require that all information required on the application is current and submitted to BAR as a condition of registration renewal. This package also deals with advertising a little, clarifying that internet-based advertising includes social media, email, and websites. And it requires that advertising clearly display the ARD's business name or DBA name and their registration number. And we are also working with DCA Legal to move this package along for the public 45-day comment period. And that's all that I have.
Thank you, Holly. I want to point out that the last two regulatory packages for the towing authorization requirement and the business information updates are an attempt by the Bureau to address comments that we received post-adoption of prior packages. So these are cleanup measures. And when they're posted, obviously, we'll get comment through the public comment period. But I wanted to bring attention to the fact that we recognized and heard from interested parties regarding a couple of packages that were adopted with unintended consequences that were not raised during the public comment period for those prior packages. So again, this is an attempt in those last two packages to clean up some unintended consequences with prior adoptions of regulations. Any questions or comments regarding Holly's presentation, starting in the room with the advisory group members? I saw Bud first, so Bud, go ahead. Bud Rice.
Not specific to Holly, but is there a place on the BAR website where we have the ability to look at watched watched legislation, rules and regs that are being considered where somebody could jump up, look at the things, see updates, see where we are with anything without having to zoom around and try to find this stuff after meetings and that kind of stuff. I mean, so I bug Jack constantly and he's always on the alert for this stuff. But it'd be kind of nice if on the bar side, we also had the ability to look at this stuff.
We do for our regulation packages that have begun the public comment period, but we don't really have a direct.
We can put a link on our website. That's a good idea.
Thank you.
If it's not there. And if it is there and it's just not easily found, we'll look at that as well. Yes, Chad Maladonov.
Yeah. Thanks, Holly, for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. One with regard to the storage regulations. There was a 15-day comment period. Did you receive any comments?
No, not related to the updated text.
The 15-day
Yeah.
comment period. Okay, so the next step is to go ahead and submit to Office Administrative Law.
Correct.
And
It sounds like we did get something, but it wasn't related to the changes that were made.
Right.
And that is a restriction when you go out for public comment. Again, it's limited, the comments are limited to the changes that we made. Yeah.
so when you submit the package to the Office Administrative Law that reviews, do you submit all the comments originally in the 45-day period as well?
Yes,
Okay, and that's what they reviewed, and they reviewed it?
do.
Okay,
yeah. And so we submit all the comments and then our reply to the comments as well. And they review all of that.
okay. When does that become public? Do you know?
That would become public once it's approved.
After the fact?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. With regard to let's see, some towing, the business information update, I just wanted to understand. So it looks like the changes would require the ARD in the application to provide the telephone number of where the location is.
Yes.
Okay.
Where they could reach one of the responsible managing employees during business hours.
Right. Okay. And then in advertising, it looks like that in the advertisement, you'll have to have obviously the name of the shop and the BAR registration number, but it's the Wild West with the phone numbers, right? You can have any phone number you want on the advertisement. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we're not requiring any specific number or.
Right. You don't even have to have a phone
You
number
don't
on
have
it.
to.
Correct.
So basically, I know that was an issue that you've addressed, and thank you for doing that because I know that was a concern for a lot of shops because they have several numbers for, marketing purposes and so forth, and they wanted to be in compliance. So it looks like you fixed the problem here.
We hope we did. We heard you loud and clear.
Well, I haven't seen the regulations, but
Well, I know.
I've seen the
Proof's in the pudding, as they say, right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Matt Webb.
I have a question regarding SB 1392. So the abbreviated smog check inspection, is that something that already exists? Or is that something that would have to be defined?
It already exists for collector motor vehicles. This bill creates an outright exemption for 10 model years, first 5 years, and then a staggered additional year for another 5 years, ending in 2032. And then it still leaves that same ability for collector motor vehicles that don't fall into those 10 model years to get an abbreviated inspection. When I say abbreviated, it still has to pass a tailpipe emissions test because these are older vehicles that are going to be subject to the tailpipe inspection. What would be and certain functional requirements or functional elements in the inspection. What they would not have to undergo is a visual inspection.
Okay.
Of the required emissions systems and components. But there is a little nuance to that in current law that I think the author and sponsors are trying to address, which is right now under current law, that bill, the collector motor vehicle, to qualify for the abbreviated inspection has to be in an unaltered condition. Well, to be exempt from the visual, you're just going to have everything required on the vehicle going through the referee. So it's kind of I don't know what you want to call it. It's a little bit of a catch-22 or something along those lines, where the intention is to exempt them from the visual portion of the inspection, but they have to qualify for that. You have to pass a visual inspection at the referee. It's a little odd, but that's the way the law reads currently. But the bill does kind of address that
Excellent. Thank you.
in its current form. Yes, Dave Kusa.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, Dave Kusa, ASCCA. The business information update, on the one of two, the fourth bullet, clarify the internet-based advertising includes social media, et cetera. Was that always there, or is that new?
That's new.
Okay. So it sounds like that would be covered as well by the next page, that if we have a link to our website that has all of that information in our emailing, social media, so on and so forth,
Yes.
okay, yeah, so I don't have to go see the website for the info. Yeah, okay, cool, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Pat.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the collector car one, so it sounds like, so this is quite actually something for Jack, right, to maybe talk with the authors about that. So it sounds to me like the removal of the visual inspection solves the problem of some of these, inconsequential smog-related parts that are no longer available on these cars. So if they could clarify that a little bit more, right? Because we run into that where, if it's a thermal vacuum switch, right, that doesn't exist on the planet, that all it does is delay the EGR until it's at 120 degrees, right? If that wasn't there, it's still going to pass the tailpipe test once the car's warmed up. But if it's like Pat said, where you have to pass the visual test to not have to pass the visual test, doesn't make much sense. Because that's what we run into on these older cars, is the component fails or is broken and it just doesn't exist on planet Earth. So if there's any clarity for them, that would be helpful to us in the field. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Thank you very much. All right, we'll turn to advisory group members who might be attending remotely, and I am I've been given an update that we do have a member attending remotely now. Could we do an introduction? Tim, is it Tim Hatcher?
This is a moderator. Yes, Tim Hatcher is online. Tim, can you please unmute yourself and make your comment? Thank you. And you can also turn on your camera. We'll pin you to the stage.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Tim, turn on your camera. We ask that members attending remotely have their cameras for
Sorry
transcription.
about that. Let me. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry for that. Hi, Timothy Hatcher with Automotive Maintenance AMRAMAP.
Which stands for the Automotive Maintenance
and Repair Association.
Yes. Thank you. Tim, good to see you. I don't think we've had you at one of these meetings, but you're sitting in today for Jeff Cox. Thank you.
Correct.
Any questions or comments regarding that presentation on the legislative and regulatory matters?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you and good to see you this morning. Welcome.
All right, thank you.
Now we'll open it up for public comment on this specific agenda item. Anyone in the room here? Not seeing any hands raised. We'll move to the WebEx portion. Moderator, could you ask to see if there's any public comments on this agenda item?
Hi, this is a moderator. If you would like to make a public comment on the agenda item, you may look for the raise hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And if you are joined us from a mobile device, you can click on raise hand icon behind 3 dots, other options. And if you are a dial-in member, you can press *3 to raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. I see no raised hands. I return the floor back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, moderator.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Holly. Great presentation. All right, we'll move to our next presenter. Kevin Brown, Manufacturers of Emissions Control Association, or otherwise known as MECA, is here to give us a presentation on fraudulent aftermarket converters and O2 sensor defeat devices, and he is attending remotely. And I'm not sure, did you have someone with you, Kevin, or is it just you today?
It is just me.
Okay, welcome. Good morning to you, and thank you for being here.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Take it away, it's yours. The floor is yours.
Okay, I'm just quickly going to see if I can get my PowerPoint into full presentation mode. There. Are you seeing it in full screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you very much for this opportunity this morning. My name is Kevin Brown, and I work for the Manufacturers of Emission Control Association.
Kevin, can I just interrupt before you get too far into the presentation? I'm having trouble hearing you, not because of any technical difficulties, but it sounds like a volume issue.
Too low or too high?
It was too low for my ears.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
That's better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I work for the Manufacturers of Emission Controls Association, which is located in Washington, D.C. We're a trade association. We represent the manufacturers of a broad range of emissions control-related components, from catalytic converters to battery materials, electric motors, and control systems. We represent the full spectrum of technologies that are used to make transportation cleaner. We also work very closely with state regulators such as CARB and the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. And this year we happen to be celebrating our 50th anniversary as a trade association. What I wanted to start off with is specifically talking about challenges that face legitimate manufacturers of aftermarket catalytic converters. What's presented here in the slide are the sales volumes that we report every year to California Resources Board and BAR. And what I want to point out here today, if we just take a look at the sales volumes from model year 2024, which is the last year that we have data for, they now represent just over 150,000 sales of CARB compliant converters a year. That is a decline of 74% since 2013. And it represents a few things, predominantly how much better catalytic converters have become in just the last decade. Overwhelmingly, they last the lifetime of the car, and when one looks at the volume, the annual volume of sales of CARB compliant catalytic converters, they represent less than 0.6% of the total in-use light-duty fleet in California. So we're talking about very low level of sales, a very small sales volume, and a challenging environment for those manufacturers that are trying to ensure the support of this market by ensuring that they have full model coverage of available catalytic converters. There are two other issues that have come up that are impacting sales of catalytic converters across the United States, and I want to highlight those to you in the next few slides. So first, just let me start by showing you, just for a quick reference, the importance of what are referred to as oxygen sensors on a modern vehicle today. And what we'll see, typically there are at least two oxygen sensors, one located upstream of the catalytic converter, which is used to control engine operation to ensure it's operating at the correct, efficient level. And the second sensor is used to monitor the performance of the catalytic converter. Now, O2 sensors can fail, and if an O2 sensor did fail, it's very common when you remove them that the threads will strip in the port, the bung that holds that sensor in the exhaust stream. And one can simply drill it out or cut it off and use a replacement bung that allows a new oxygen sensor to be installed. And the most important thing about the installation of an oxygen sensor is to maintain that sensor in the actual flow of the exhaust. So with that being said, I'm trying to advance the next slide. Here we go. There are an ever expanding number of what are called oxygen sensor spacers, sometimes called emulators, sometimes called O2 sensor stabilizers, or check engine light fix eliminators, a wide variety of names and a wide variety of these defeat devices. And what they do is they allow you to take that oxygen sensor out. So you've got a check engine light, you've got a catalyst that is deficient, or an oxygen sensor could be deficient. But what you do is you remove that sensor and you add an extender to that location where the oxygen sensor was. And the way these devices work is they remove that oxygen sensor from seeing the full exhaust flow. So it's no longer getting an accurate signal of what the levels of emissions in the exhaust system are. And this can be done simply by removing it from the flow. You can see that some of these devices will use a smaller orifice in the end to restrict the flow of exhaust. Some will use a wire screen. Some will use a 90-degree bend to further restrict the sensor seeing the true exhaust flow. And most recently now, they'll actually put a small catalyst inside to clean up the exhaust before it gets to the sensor. So the sensor thinks it's seeing a clean exhaust. That's the way these devices work. And they are a defeat device. They are not a legitimate fix for vehicles. Now, one of our member companies took some of these devices and they disassembled them just to take a look at what was actually on the catalyst. I mean, these are very tiny little catalyst elements that are put in these devices, far, far, far smaller than the catalytic converter. And they have virtually no precious metal on them. They have levels that are less than 1% of what would be on an aftermarket or an OE converter. So this is what it works for, and it's only meant to clean up the small amount of exhaust flow that's coming to the sensor so you can make an engine that's even in worse condition pass a test. And what I want to raise a concern about is how prevalent these have become. You can find these online any number of places today. What originally started off, you found them on Chinese websites, internet websites. They're now broadly available on a wide variety of internet websites globally. And what's really disturbing with this search result I'm showing you, it comes from a nationwide retailer. And this is the searching on their website, their retail website, using the O2 sensor adapter cell eliminator as the search. And it brought up 70 search results. And when I did this search, and this was just a couple of weeks ago, I specifically put in for delivery to a store in Sacramento, California. So this is how prevalent they are. The devices range in volumes from 1 to as many as 50, and they can be had for less than $5 a piece. So widely available. When we take a look today at the challenges to inspection, they're becoming increasingly more difficult. That's because packaging on the modern cars is typically now putting that three-way catalytic converter right up as part of the engine. It's integrated to the engine. So it's making the ability to view it easily getting more and more difficult, with things like oxygen sensors being located up out of view of the bottom of the chassis. Further complicating this is that modern cars increasingly now have covers under the bottom for aerodynamics. So it's completely blocking the view without removing these covers. So we're getting in a situation that in the absence of a hoist or a pit and removing covers and the position of the catalytic converter, it's getting very difficult for many cars to clearly see what has been done to that vehicle. So the presence of one of these oxygen sensor extenders have become incredibly difficult to see. And this is just a link. You can find hundreds and hundreds of videos on YouTube and on Facebook. Different influencers telling people how to use the device. Some will tell you that in the state you're in, they may be, quote, illegal. Some will say that it's an absolute fix, it's a legitimate fix. But I just wanted to highlight this to let you know how prevalent information about these devices are. The other thing I want to warn you about is the continued dumping of low-cost, non-compliant aftermarket converters. These have been prevalent in the market now for more than a decade, but they're growing in volume and they've become incredibly difficult to enforce. So what we have is, again, these are predominantly internet sales. One places the order, the money goes across the ocean to a foreign account, and these devices are either shipped from across the ocean, but more commonly, they're located in US commercial warehouses that supply internet sales. So the money goes overseas, and then a ship notice goes to one of these warehouses that ships the parts out. They very often will tell you that they are not available for sale in California states or states that follow California rules, but they are widely available and they can be used in combination with oxygen sensor extenders to get through an inspection maintenance procedure. So these two factors are having a real economic impact on legitimate manufacturers and their ability to continue to invest future California market needs. This is a key point I want to make. And just to quickly highlight, aftermarket converters, this is an example for a 2015 Toyota Camry, a legitimate aftermarket converter, carb compliant for this vehicle cost $260, but online you could get them, two of them, for as little as $46. Now they're not compliant, but as I said, people that do this are just trying to get through an inspection maintenance test. And one point to make here is that not only are fewer and fewer cars needing a replacement converter in their life, but well over 95% of cars that get an aftermarket catalytic converter never get a second one. This is a one-time sale. So people will tend to want to not spend the money to make this repair. So they will look for ways to save money. And just to show you, this is just a universal converter. This is an example of a direct fit converter for a Honda Civic. And this is a relatively complex catalytic converter. It mounts to the manifold on the engine. And you can see a legitimate one costs $842 with the knockoff one available for less than $100 and sometimes prices as low as $50. Now, the latest development that's happened. We know in the past few years there was just a huge surge in catalytic converter thefts. And that happened because certain vehicles, older vehicles, had levels of precious metals that in the last decade have become increasingly more valuable, making them targets for theft. But there's a new twist in this, and I want to highlight it here. This was done by one of our member companies in California. They took a Toyota Prius to a service facility in Los Angeles that had a check engine light illuminated. So after some discussion, the shop told them that, the OE converter is worth over $1,800, but they could fix it for $800. And they made a call, and a van showed up and delivered a wrapped catalyst to the shop, not a converter, just the catalyst with a metal wrap to it. And I'll show you next what they found. Now they fixed the vehicle and the check engine light was off, and the manufacturer here took it back to their shop, and they took the part off and cut it open to show that what happened was the OE converter had been broken out. It's difficult to see here, but what they had received at the shop was a wrapped catalyst. So it was a metal sleeve around a non-compliant catalytic converter that was slid into the OE converter shell and welded in and then welded back up. Now, this is fraudulent on two levels and really detrimental to the consumer. First, the consumer paid $800 for probably a part that was worth well under $50. But in addition, the original catalytic converter was broken out of that converter, and the seller of that converter got to keep that catalytic converter that had a high precious metal content and value to it. So the consumer loses in two ways. This is really just another level of theft. And I will tell you that this is prevalent in China. In China, cars that are often returned, leased vehicles that are returned, or vehicles that are in for repairs, people will steal the catalytic converters and replace them with one of these non-compliant Chinese converters, and then hope that the owner never finds out. So this is what's coming over into the United States today, and it's impairing the ability of legitimate converters, aftermarket catalytic converters, to make their business profitable. So I just want to quickly summarize some of the key issues that we're looking for support from the Bureau of Automotive Repair. The biggest issue today is that there's a lack of national enforcement of offshore manufacturers. Offshore manufacturers are getting access to the US market without having a domestic entity that organizations like EPA can enforce upon. As I said, money goes overseas, the product is often already in the country and being shipped through an online sales process. The costs are well below legitimate producers in this country. And this is a real problem today. So there's also, just in the last year, a court decision. This is what further invigorating these people to do this, is that there is it's called the Communications Decency Act, and it largely makes sellers, online sellers of products, immune to liability for selling illegal products. And most recently in 2023, EPA sued eBay for selling over 370,000 defeat devices, pesticides, and chemicals that were deemed to be illegal in the United States. And the court found eBay was not liable. So there's very little enforcement that is being done right now. And we are seeking help presently from EPA's Office of Enforcement and Compliance and the Commerce Department and Customs and Border Protection to try to protect legitimate U.S. manufacturers and consumers from this type of being preyed upon by others that would choose to try to cheat the system. And we're looking for support from the Bureau of Automotive Repairs in this. I'm happy to answer questions for you. That's the last slide I have.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Excellent presentation. I see this as a challenge to the Bureau to attempt to address this issue. We have attempted to do so in a pending regulatory package. Well, it's not pending yet. It's one we're working on with a similar presentation with counterfeit airbags. Might look to replicate some of the things we're doing there in this arena. Not sure how exactly, if there's a direct correlation, not necessarily the same, but the same correlation in the response from the Bureau.
What I would suggest is that 50 state in-use enforcement of this is going to be incredibly difficult, as you can well imagine. The way to really snip this in the bud is to get a a declaration from EPA to work with Commerce and Customs to literally just stop the blockage of these types of things from getting into the country without being sent to a legitimate domestic entity who can take legal liability.
Yeah.
That's what makes it the best way to handle it. Just don't let them come in the country.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much for that comment. We'll open it up if you would please stick around and take any questions or comments that we have from our advisory group members and then any public representatives. Let's start with the advisory group. Anyone here? Yes, Dave Gusa.
Thank you for the presentation. Great presentation. This is really more of a comment question for BAR. So the part of the presentation that detailed the inaccessibility visually to many of these components because of the underbody covers. One of our members sent me a comment or question specifically on this. So industry's concern is how aggressive is BAR going to be in enforcing or undercover cars or something like that, where some of these devices might be added to the car in an effort to test the industry, as it were, right? So as I recall, current regulation doesn't require the car to be lifted or using tools to remove any components for inspection. It's basically look under the vehicle and see what you can see. But as we all know, many of the aftermarket catalytic converters, you can kind of look under there and go, that does look like it's an aftermarket converter. So you got to get a lot closer to see if it's got the proper OE number on it, right? So going forward, obviously, this is a bigger problem than I was aware of. So industry's concern is, getting set up, not necessarily by BR, but, just getting set up through regulation. So if there's could be more clarity in defining, what is visible or not. I know that's a bit ethereal, but it's just a concern that legitimate guys are going to get caught or get in trouble for not being close enough in what they would consider to be their best effort to visually inspect these things and maybe interpret it as not their best effort.
That's a good comment, and we'll take it under advisement to look at potential regulations to clarify that issue on the inspection. Yes, Bud Rice.
Bud Rice, Cali, BC. Thank you, Kevin, for your presentation. Sometimes it takes me a minute to kind of mold this through my head a little bit. So if you'll grant me that, it seems like a failed car comes into a shop, and either the shop does a good repair by using the right parts and the right repairs, or they do a bad repair by using the stuff that you're talking about. So that's one avenue that can occur when this car comes in. Second thing that can happen is a car comes in and it fails and it's already had the bad stuff put in, or a car comes in and it's actually passing, but they need to have a smog inspection done because of transfer of ownership or something like that, and the shop sees that this stuff is bad, and now we have to do something about that. So I'm trying to get the pathway straight in my head as to how this occurs, what's the shop's responsibility for trying to make it right, and by moving to a successful conclusion. So I'm just milling this around with you a little bit, Kevin. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
So I would say that it's incredibly difficult to deal with this in terms of in-use enforcement. The way to deal with this, I would suggest and invite people, is to contact EPA's Office of Enforcement and Compliance Assurance, either by writing letters to the administrator of that group and saying that this is a problem that needs EPA to declare these devices as defeat devices and direct customs to stop their importation and their sale. I mean, you can also get after online retailers. I mean, just through education, making sure that online retailers know that these devices are on a list that are targeted as being, illegitimate. And then I think a lot of retailers will say, I don't want to give third-party access to post such devices on my website.
Thank you for the response. Any additional questions or comments from advisory group members here in the room? Seeing none, we'll move to the WebEx platform moderator. Does Mr. Hatcher or anyone else who might have joined us from the advisory group remotely have any comments or questions for the presenter?
Hi, this is
No
a
comments from Tim.
All right, thank you. Let's now open it up for public comment on this agenda item here in the room. Anyone? Seeing no hands raised, we will move to the WebEx portion. And moderator, please open it up for public comment on this agenda item.
Hi, this is the moderator. If you would like to make a comment on the agenda item just discussed, you may look for the raise hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And if you are a call-in public member, you can press *3 to raise your hand. We'll give you 2 minutes with a 30-second warning to make your comment. I do see a request from Jerry. Jerry, you're going to be seeing an unmute request on your screen. Please click on that to make your comment. Thank you.
Jerry. I know Jerry is.
Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Jerry,
Oh,
Esme,
good.
right?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Jerry.
Sorry, first time I ever done this on my phone.
Oh,
But I have just one comment for Bar, which I teach the classes to these students and all this. And when you're in the OIS machine, it has one category, which includes sensors, switches, and all of that. I've always thought that it would have been a good idea to have a separate category for just oxygen sensor, even if you name it front O2 and rear O2s, because then they have to make sure it reminds them. I mean, I teach them to find them, and I get pictures daily of these things being found, the extenders. But if we could add a separate category for just oxygen sensors to make it more prevalent in their minds, they need to look at these things. Okay, that's just my suggestion. I don't know if it's doable or not.
I will definitely take a look at it. Why didn't you make this suggestion while you were working for us, Jerry?
Well, got to remember the OIS didn't come out till 2015. I'd already retired.
No worries.
No worries. But yeah, and one more
Suggestion.
thing, he commented about them cutting the cat open. Might be a good idea to remind them, which I do all my students. I show pictures of stuff. What he showed is that there's no welding allowed on the casing of a catalytic converter, none. Okay, if aftermarket, what they're doing is taking OEM cats, cutting them open, taking the good brick out and putting these aftermarket cheap bricks in, but they have to weld it up. That isn't the way those come. They're wrapped differently. I know he knows this, but if we just reiterate, maybe through bar blast, or something, that check for welds on a converter or something like that, or remind them no welding on a catalytic converter. You can only weld on the pipes, the inlet and outlet pipes. Just a suggestion, because we're going to start seeing these things.
All right, I've jotted both of those suggestions down. Thank you very much, Jerry.
All right.
Good to see you or hear from you again.
Well, good. It's good to see all of you there. You guys take care. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for attending. Any other comments, moderator, from the public on this item?
No other raised hands. I return the floor back to you, Chair.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Any last remarks? Appreciate your presentation today and attending remotely. You're in Washington, D.C.?
I'm actually located in Canada. I represent Manufacturing Emission Controls Association in Canada.
Oh, okay. Okay, my mistake there.
Nope, that's okay.
The organization, the organization, I think you said, was in Washington, D.C., so I just made an assumption there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But thank you very much for this opportunity. And again, I really encourage Bar that I think the focal point here needs to be EPA OECA to take action to get these devices off the internet and get them, not let them come to the border.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, we'll look at what we can do regulatorily speaking, but obviously working through our counterparts at the California Air Resources Board, who has the direct pipeline, I guess, and interactions with the US EPA on these issues, these types of issues, might prove fruitful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. All right, we are scheduled to take a break. Does anyone have any objection to taking the next presenter? Yeah, I think we were kind of debating whether to put the break before or after this next presentation, but I think we've only been here for an hour, so I think we'll power on and take our next presenter here for the California Vehicle Inspection System, or CalViz, update. Paul Hedgeland with the Bar Engineering and Research Branch. Good to see you, Paul.
All right, good morning, everyone. This is one of our updates on California Vehicle Inspection System. So we go ahead and go to the first slide. We'll start with an overview as a reminder. The California Vehicle Inspection System is the information technology solution that supports all aspects of smog check, vehicle safety systems programs. It includes data centers, hardware, software, network connectivity. And the system requires continuous monitoring, patching, security updates, and changes to accommodate new business. Go ahead. So starting last year, third quarter, we made database changes in preparation for a future referee noise inspection software release. So we built the back end first and the software is released later. We removed the ability for station owners and managers to inactivate their own CalViz account. If you remember in a prior release, about the time we released safety inspections, we gave stations the ability to better manage the users in those systems. And with that, some owners and managers accidentally removed themselves. So we made that a little more difficult to do. And then lastly, we added California Air Resources Board clean truck check language to the inspection reports. Oh, go ahead. Fourth quarter last year, we had a 25.4 release, and this is where we actually did the software update to accommodate referee inspection of vehicles with excessive exhaust noise citations, which they're using currently. We also added noise inspection results to BAR's inspection history page, so a consumer can look up those results by VIN license, just like a smog or safety inspection. The 25.4.1 release, we did some rebranding from OBD inspection system to CalViz. So if you remember, the system was originally identified as an OBD inspection system, OIS. So with the addition of safety inspections, the name turned into more of a global name of California Vehicle Inspection System. So we're just carrying that naming convention through the software. A minor change. We added a link to certified data acquisition devices. That's the OBD scan tool portion of the system. We added a link to that BAR webpage in the self-diagnostic screen, so users could find certified DADs more easily. And we did some updates for DAD 2.0 certification. There's a number of changes in the software, and these are sort of parked off to the side for vendor and BAR testing while we go through certification. And they'll eventually merge into the main code for station use once we've certified devices. And lastly, 25.4.2 release, it was just a bug fix related to referee noise inspection certificate purchasing. So it didn't affect stations at all. And then we'll go ahead to this year. So 26.1's first quarter release. We're completing testing of this software release tomorrow. It's all looking good. Platform software updates, basically some code modernization. There was one business change there where we improved some logic around the safety recall lookups to make it work better when the system's slow. And then looking ahead to the next release, second quarter 2026, We're going to improve the vehicle identification number decoder. We're going to build an electronic access so courts can access noise inspection results to sign off those citations. We're going to do another change for DAD 2.0, allows us to track the firmware used on the DADs. So there's multiple pieces of software that are DAD related. We want to track those and make sure they're all certified configuration. And lastly, we'll have another improvement to the vehicle safety recall logic lookup to make that run more efficiently. So besides CalViz updates, we're beginning the DAD 2.0 certification process pretty soon. So we'll be doing that this summer. We've got a few interested vendors submitting product very soon. And the last point here, we're released, I believe today is a public release of the request for information for contracted inspection network. If you remember, that's where the pre-OBD vehicles allows BAR to do a contracted inspection network for those vehicles. And that will get mailed also to interested parties. And then the last update looking ahead here is 26.3 release. That's again a technical release with a bunch of code modernization we call platform software updates. There's a few more updates for DAD 1.0, 2.0, and biometric software. And the point to take away here is this update won't run on 32-bit Windows systems anymore. So we looked up stations. There are only about 3 stations statewide that still have those old platforms. So we should be good to release that. So I think that's all I had for you today.
Thank you. A lot going on. We'll try to do an update on all of the updates that affect the industry and our management of the 2 programs, the smog check and vehicle safety systems inspection programs, at least twice a year. So thanks for coming back. Any questions or comments for Paul from the advisory group members? Yes, Bud Rice.
Bud Rice for Cali ABC. When we get to public comment, Jim, if you wanted to say something during this period of time, and Jim's with Opus. In many cases, some of these updates and upgrades that are coming along, shops are kind of stuck in the middle because either they own the equipment and need to do some updates, or they're leasing the equipment from the vendor who needs to do the updates. And so sometimes we're kind of caught in the middle trying to get these things done. I appreciate the BAR alerts that come through on the system, though, reminding everybody, hey, this is coming up. Hey, this is coming up. And then we can see what can we do and what do we need to have our vendor do in the meantime. But just, I think you're giving us enough time to be able to do this stuff in a timely fashion so that when those times hit, I think we may be in pretty good shape. But you and I, we were laughing about the Windows 10. Okay, yeah, I think I've got one that's got Windows 10. So I know we've got to get those. We're trying to get all those ones on 11, just to bypass it and not be on the legacy version of Windows 10 and just keep trying to stay on the legacy side. Just jump to 11, get it over with. But appreciate your presentation and the fact that you're giving us some time to move along here with both what shops may own themselves and need help with vendors and the things that are being leased through vendors and what they can do to help us as well. So I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the acknowledgement, Bud. Any other comments here in the room from advisory group members? We'll ask any advisory group members on the WebEx platform. No? Now we'll open it up for public comments, first starting here in the room. Was it Jim? No? Nope. Nothing? No? Good. You've been a good partner over the years. Thank you so much. Moderator, could we open it up for public comment here on the WebEx?
Hi, this is the moderator. If you would like to make a comment, you can click on raise hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And if you are a call-in public member, you may press *3 to raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. I see no raised hands. I return the floor back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Paul, got off lightly. Actually, you got an acknowledgement, so that's a bonus, right? Thank you so much. We'll probably see you back, I guess, 2 meetings from now. So that would make the October advisory group meeting, maybe to give an update on the certification of the DAD 2.0.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
maybe some other things.
Sounds good.
Yep. Good to see you. Thank you so much. All right, now we'll take our 15-minute break. We are at 10:40 a.m. and we will come back here at roughly 10:55 a.m. Thank you. All right, we went an extra minute. We're at 10:56 and we will welcome everyone back from the break. And our next presentation will be on agenda item number 6, the consumer complaint process. And here to give us that presentation, back by popular demand, is that okay to say?
Sure.
Okay. Bill Thomas, Bar Executive Office. Where's the bobblehead? You were going to bring a bobblehead.
I was going
as
to
a
bring
prop.
bobblehead Bill, and I just,
Yeah, we have a bobblehead of Bill.
How do I get one?
I know. Oh, they're in much demand.
there's limited edition. I have a certificate of authenticity, and there's only 2.
And he will autograph them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring that maybe to one of the next meetings. That is a neat little thing that someone on the staff did.
Yeah, it's odd. I chickened out. That's rare
Okay.
for me normally.
I think Zach talked you out of it.
Like, is that really professional? And
We need a couple of laughs every now and then, certainly in these environments. So, yeah. Welcome, Bill, and take it away.
Well, yes, thank you, Pat, and thank you, advisory group, for allowing me, all of you calling up and petitioning Pat to never have me up here again. I appreciate that. I do enjoy our interactions, and this one I think we're all going to be on the same page on the consumer complaint process with the Bureau. And I did a similar presentation 6-8 years ago to this body, and it's changed since then. We've learned things. There's nuances in the world today, and I have a slide that we'll be talking about that near the end that affect how the Bureau receives and investigates complaints and gathers statements from consumers. So we felt it was time to update. We are constantly reviewing and updating all of our processes and enforcement to make sure that we're meeting our mandate of protecting consumers and ensuring a fair and competitive marketplace. And the best way to ensure a fair and competitive marketplace is to make sure that all ARDs, all 37,000 of them, can compete fairly and legitimately and that's it's not on the slide, so I'm making stuff up as I go. So I better move on. Next slide, please. So Bar investigates, and this was Pat punted this back to me when I first drafted this presentation, because for years now we've been saying we do 15,000 complaints a year. Somebody asked, how many complaints do you do? Oh, 15,000. And a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months, one of my field supervisor twos, my regional managers, said, complaints are way up. And I said, no, I haven't seen that. And so we went back and checked the numbers, and lo and behold, complaints have been ticking up. In 24-25 fiscal year, we did 17,422. And this year, we're projecting to exceed just over 19,000 consumer complaints. So roughly, 20, maybe close to a 25% increase in complaints over the last few years. The primary goal of our complaint process is to address consumer concerns regarding repair transactions and seek a resolution acceptable to both parties. Historically, we've used the word a fair and appropriate resolution. In this day and age, we just try and get something that both parties can meet in the middle and agree on. A lot of times, one party may not feel it's entirely fair, but it's something that both parties can arrive at a meeting point. Complaint investigations attempt to determine the exact nature of the consumer's complaint, what took place during the repair transaction, and then again, an appropriate resolution acceptable to both parties. Next slide, please. As a result of the Bureau's efforts in investigating complaints in the 24-25 fiscal year, we achieved $12,888 in restitution to consumers. Restitution is a challenge because that's often ordered through small claims court or civil court processes, and gathering that data is nearly impossible. So it's only when we have the opportunity to be directly involved with the civil matter that we are able to gather that number. So I think it's possibly higher, but amount refunded to consumers, a little over about 5.3 million. Rework at no charge, about almost 1.8 million. And adjustments to the repair bill, 2.2 million, for a total consumer savings of 9.3 million saved for consumers. Next slide, please. So the heart of our complaint process, well, the heart of it is the investigation by the field representative, field investigators, the enforcement investigators. But the process starts with the complaint intake. And this is a common, Pat and I go to, and all of my managers, we go to the field offices and we visit each field office once a year. We do quarterly visits, and by region, we have 4 regions. And a common theme in those meetings is how can we refine the complaint process to where we can gather more information to get farther down the road in the complaint investigation on the front end. And the challenge we face is, well, that's great. I understand why the field would want that, but my goal is to make the complaint intake process as simple and as intuitive for consumers as possible. I want to get the complaints in. Bud, and I think we've had this conversation in the past. You figure roughly, well, 30 million cars on the road. What average repairs used to be 4 repairs per year. I think that's probably lower now. So 2, so 60 million repair transactions a year. In this industry, there's going to be complaints. Things are going to go sideways. So 19,000 is a low number. I know, Bud, you feel that's a good number. But so we want the consumers to be able to file a complaint with us. We have provided drop-down menus and to capture basic information about the complaint. We have removed the narrative portion of the complaint submittal process. Consumers would frequently provide a multi-page explanation of the complaint, and they would input that online, and then my field investigators, enforcement investigators would call the consumer up and say, so, well, tell me what happened. And the consumer would say, well, I already told you what happened when I submitted it online. So now we tell them, just get us the complaint and we'll call you up and we'll discuss it, because it's far better to have a back and forth discussion where we can ask probing questions, clarify information and so forth. So we've scaled back the ability to provide 8-page narratives in the complaint process. And it works much better to just be able to talk to the consumers. Consumers can file a complaint on our website at bar.ca.gov/complaint. Call our complaint intake unit at the 855-837-7985. And a printable form is in development, because once we revise the online submittal form, we have to update the printable form. But our preferred method is through the portal at the complaint, because that just gets it right into the process. The complaint form, next slide, please. The online complaint form captures basic tracking information that is transmitted directly to BAR staff, who input the information into the BAR database. And then the complaint transmits overnight to the appropriate field office for assignment to an investigator. The routing process is automated and takes a matter of minutes once the assignment is made. And so complaints are in the hands of the enforcement investigator within a day in most cases, and within hours in many. Complaint evidence and findings. All statements, evidence, documents, and other information secured during the complaint investigation process are privileged information under the California Evidence and Government Codes and are not subject to public disclosure. It's investigative work product, and the information gathered there's an implied confidentiality. We want both consumers and ARDs to feel comfortable telling their story to the enforcement investigator without the belief that that information is going to be shared with all parties and maybe even publicly. So it's investigative work product and not subject to public disclosure. We have received numerous public records Act requests that appear to be prepared with the assistance of AI. There's the same 6 pieces of information asked in every single PRA. A little subtle differences in the verbiage, but it's the same 6 items, and they're privileged information and not subject to disclosure. Next slide, please. Those pieces of information is they want to know exactly what investigative steps were taken. We don't disclose our investigative process. What evidence was gathered during the investigation? Again, and sometimes that's documents from ARDs and parts receipts and so on and so forth that is not generally public information. Internal bar communications related to the investigation. We need to have an internal deliberative process that's not out in the public realm. Violations identified during the investigation. Violations can only be confirmed by a judge, by a trier of fact. My representatives will look at the transaction and have discussions with ARDs regarding areas of the statutes and regulations where the ARD can maybe, change some of their business practices and be a little more in compliance. But we don't call out violations in a complaint. Again, that's not one of the 3 goals stated earlier. The PRA request also want to know the outcome of the investigation. That is disclosed in conversations between the parties, between the investigators and the parties. And then any educational or disciplinary action under consideration. We kind of contradicted ourselves there, because I've always said that education is discipline, because the goal of discipline, Bureau and Bar Enforcement, is to enforce compliance with the Automotive Repair Act. Education can gain compliance with the Automotive Repair Act. So it's absolutely enforcement. Oh, it does say disciplinary action, sorry. Yeah, you probably changed that when we drafted it.
Yeah, it's an enforcement action, but it's not discipline, it's education.
Right,
Yep.
Sorry, my mistake. And final slide, next slide for complaint evidence and findings. Although the information on the previous slide is privileged and not subject to disclosure, BAR will provide disclosable items to both parties, including but not limited to a closure letter advising the complaint has been closed. In some cases, we have implemented a process to provide a summary letter that lists the 3 things earlier: the nature of the complaint, what took place during the repair transaction, and the outcome of the complaint. We send out a survey card. We want feedback on the complaint process from both consumers and the ARDs. And there's a link, there's a QR code to link to SurveyMonkey to gather that information. And information on seeking legal guidance for future action by either party. And next slide, and this was the one. I think AI tried to block the posting of that slide.
Who's really doing this presentation?
We've seen, and I mentioned it earlier with the 6-page narratives that we get, what appears to be the use of artificial intelligence. And I'm not here to debate the benefits or risks to society of AI, just to point out that each complaint is unique. Each repair transaction has its own unique circumstances. All of you know that, and everybody listening online and in the audience. Each repair transaction has subtle differences. And to evaluate those on a global overview method through artificial intelligence is not really feasible. So consumers and licensees relying on AI to provide a likely outcome to a complaint should be aware that AI-generated responses may be inaccurate and or incomplete. And for us, every complaint investigation conducted by BAR requires and receives human analysis, evaluation, and discussion among my staff. We don't use AI to generate enforcement outcomes. And they're always made by the bar investigator with occasional input from a bar lead or supervisor. And I think that's it. Comments and questions?
Yeah, short and sweet, but a good presentation. Appreciate you coming back to do this one because it has been a while since we talked about the complaint process. Anyway, we'll open it up for comments from everyone. Let's start with the advisory group members here at the table. Bud Rice.
First off, yeah, thank you. And you're right. I was trying to think of how many cars there are in California now. What is it? 30 million
Yeah.
times 2, 60 million, 19,000 complaints. I mean, the ratio is, but they need to be taken care of and customers need to be made
Right.
whole. Okay, so I agree with you 100%, but the ratio is not bad in relationship to industries in general. Okay.
Yes.
Now I have heard something. I just kind of wanted to chase it with you real quick. When you'd have a complaint and you're in interaction with the shop regarding the complaint, is the interaction and the things that are held within the complaint just the things in the complaint, or is an inspector walking around going, oh, by the way, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and all of a sudden they got 5 things going on when it originated with, I didn't get this guy's drain pan connected correctly or something like, hooked up correctly, and all of a sudden now I've got 10 things I'm battling with the bar over instead of the one thing that brought the customer in.
I'm going to use it depends. We often have that discussion internally regarding what, and that the 3 items, the 3 goals of what we look for in a complaint is, it's really, we want to figure out what took place during the repair transaction. There's often times, well, do we go in and address what the consumer's allegations are? We don't necessarily need to, we just want to know what took place during the repair transaction. And that's the primary focus. But when we're there, if they don't have an ARD sign up or something like that, there is an obligation to at least point it out. And, if we pointed it out 10 times in the past, how we pointed out this 11th time may be a little bit different. But for the most part, the goal is education. I frequently said, and I say to my staff all the time in meetings, we're fully aware. My philosophy, Pat's philosophy, and the Bureau's philosophy is 97, 98% of our registrants are just people earning a living and feeding their families. And we're there to help them do that successfully, not to bust their chops on every single, even though 19,000 is a low number. We're not there to do that. So if we do see something, we point it out just to help them comply with what's expected.
Yeah, and just like you're saying, my initial, and I've heard this from different shops and stuff like that, that they'll come in with a complaint, but they'll hear other things. And like you're saying, you're trying to educate them about this,
Right.
This needs to be like this. They have to think of it as 2 separate things.
Yes.
This thing I'm working on with this customer, and now I'm being told that I need to clean this stuff up over here. So in their mind, they got to get it separated and take action on it. A lot of times, though, I hear a shop and a complaint will come in. And my first question is, well, did you do it? And when the guy goes, well, yeah, and I go, well, okay, let's get, then let's get it fixed up. Let's fix it. Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, right. I mean, so that's the first question. Did you do it? And if the answer is yes, then we got to figure out how to fix it up. Yes. So, sounds funny, but I think we're working on the same thing, trying to make sure that the customer is taken care of correctly, right. And things that we can do to help at the shop environment, great. Things that we can help in terms of getting the shop up and going and making sure that they're delivering, great. So I just want to make sure that you understand we're all on the same page, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I was just going to elaborate a little bit on this discussion on this point is, the consumer filing a complaint isn't going to say their paperwork was all wrong necessarily. So it's an opportunity for us to look at that transaction. I've heard in some of our investigations, consumer complaint investigations, where something wasn't pointed out, conversely, and the shop then hears back from another investigator on a future complaint, and it says, well, the last guy never said anything about this. And we're like, yeah, so it is an opportunity for us to raise awareness about all of the laws and regulations that an ARD is held to, and again, not looking for the opportunity to, as Bill put it, bust their chops, but to point out things that are less than ideal or perfect by our laws and regulations, so they don't get tripped up on a future complaint, and that they are complying with those laws and regulations. I think it's really a good opportunity for the ARD to be educated on the things that maybe they're unaware of. Certainly the consumer's not complaining about some of that paperwork that is really critical to having a meeting of the minds on the repair transaction itself.
I got stuff.
Okay, Dave Kusa.
Thanks, Bill. Of those 19,000 complaints, how many of them resolved in favor of the shop, if you know?
I don't have that number.
Okay.
I don't know that we even have a code that tracks which party won, if you will. Which
Well, yeah, I don't want to use one,
Yeah.
but yeah, right. I mean,
prevailed.
yeah.
I will say there is a number where the shop, and I review, I mean, obviously I don't review all 19,000, but I probably read through a couple hundred complaints a year, or a few hundred complaints a year. And there's a reasonable number where the ARD did everything as required by the statutes and regulations. And what the consumer's expectations were was where the communication breakdown took place, in that they were expecting something that it was possibly not reasonable.
Got it. Okay. So I have a little bit different take on the 19,000 number, right? 19,000 to 60 million is very small, but 19,000 to 37,000 ARDs is high. That's almost two complaints per shop per year. So having, 25 years, having 3 complaints and I'm 2 for 1, and the one that I wrote them a check is because after my visit with the BR, it was like very clear we messed up, right? So it's, oh yeah, you're right, I will refund their money, right? The other 2, right, it was like, there was we were okay, right? We was, the one you know about too, right? So, where was I going with all that? So works out to about $536 per complaint of the 9.3 million on 19,000 complaints, right? So when there is compensation, it's not generally a lot, which is good news. So I guess where I'm going with it is, my experience on the 3-person panel is almost 100% of the citations are paperwork like I don't have the paperwork. I don't have to give you the paperwork, right? So there's that misconception in industry that the industry doesn't even know that's a regulation, that when BAR shows up, you have a reasonable amount of time to demand paperwork related to that event, right? Which is clear in regulation. It's amazing how we don't know that as an industry, right? So, BAR does a great job of, when requested, of educating. We've had many chapters in ASCCA where, a person from the local office was there to talk about regulations. So really appreciate that, that education side of it. I don't know what the answer is, but if there's a better way or an improved way of educating, idiot shop owners like me, that BAR is not out to get you, play by the rules and you'll be fine.
I won't use your words. I would much rather educate shop owners like yourself and others that just are unaware of the explicit requirements of the statutes and regulations than deal with one who just doesn't think those statutes apply to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's
some of them
in these complaints that with the citations we reviewed, the consumer complaint was solved, right? The shop fixed the consumer complaint.
Right.
It was they didn't comply with BAR regulations, which is generally very simple, right? If they had turned over the paperwork, they would not have gotten a citation, right? So, and they always want to talk about the consumer complaint, which that's not the problem. You fixed that.
Right.
God bless you, right? You're an honest, moral, ethical business owner. You took care of the problem, but now you got to play by the rules too. So, and that's, I think, where the disconnect is, it's out there, right? But how do we get it into the hands of the shop owner or the shop manager? The right is clear online. It's not that hard to read and understand. So, that's another great improvement that's been made by BAR over the years to help us understand that. But getting the industry aware of it is, educating them one person at a time, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Matt Webb.
Question on the intake form. And maybe I'll go look at that. I'll put a complaint on one of your guys' shop or something. On the intake form, is there
19,001.
is there a question on there that, and I assume there is, I haven't seen it, but that asks the consumer if they've reached out to the shop first?
I should let you finish the question.
No, I saw you.
That was, sorry.
Because we had a complaint, this was a few years ago, and it was a scenario where it was a skid plate on a car, wasn't reattached correctly. Customer drove down the street and, and it plastic, you know how that works. And it sounds like the car's going to blow up.
Yeah.
So, they replaced the skid plate. They went to a dealership and, it was a couple $100. And then they immediately went and complained to, whatever the intake form was at the time. They complained and they never even contacted us. So by the time we were contacted through the program representative, we're like, that's weird. This person never even talked to us. Obviously, we resolved it and reimbursed them for the $200 for the new skid plate and what have you. But I just was wondering about that.
It is a question.
Okay.
It wasn't previously a question on our complaint form.
Got it.
We have had that. Have you tried to work it out with the ARD? And what was the outcome of that?
And I agree with Dave also that, it's it's training on your guys' end on how these things are presented, because when a BAR representative comes into someone's shop, their first reaction is to freak out. Oh my gosh, they're accusing me of this. And sometimes I think maybe that's just the tone that it comes off from, which is, it's a training issue. And I know you guys have worked on that. I would say, I've been in the business 31 years now. And, at least the things I hear now, everybody says, oh yeah, they were reasonable. They listened to what I said. They weren't acute. They just didn't come in, pointing the finger saying, hey, you guys are wrong. But so that's been positive, I think. So.
It's good to hear. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, appreciate that feedback. Thank you. Yeah, Jack Maladonov.
Thanks for the presentation, Bill. I have a couple questions on the process. And I know you've done, or tried a good job to make sure the enforcement and the complaint process is consistent throughout the state. Because I know there have been issues in the past where Southern California does it a little different than Northern California. There's some, but I know you've progressed and try to make everything consistent. So with that in mind, if a shop does get a complaint and the BR representative does come into the facility, the reasonable thing to do is if they're, if the shop is busy or so, is it unreasonable for the shop to say, you know what, I know you want these documents. I want to cooperate. Can we schedule another time? Is that something where is appropriate for the shop to tell the representative without having any kind of repercussions?
Yes.
Okay.
And that happens quite frequently. And we train our reps, and I'm going to give away a trade secret. I'm giving away investigative secrets, but we always tell them, great, would you like me to come back tomorrow? Or would you like me to come back in 3 days or tomorrow? Because usually human nature is to pick the last one. So it is, and records requests, as Dave was talking about, the statute is very clear. It says it must be a reasonable request for records. And so if the ARD is clearly busy and says, look, I'm going to need a couple days.
Yeah.
Our reps are trained to do that. Now, if we walk in and the service writer's playing video poker, or the owner is playing video poker at the counter and there's no customers in the store, we might not be open to the I'm busy right now argument.
So when the rep does attend or go to the facility, they have already spoken to the consumer, or is that policy where or do they go to the facility and that's the first time they haven't spoken to the consumer? How does that? What's your policy on that? Does the rep have to talk to the consumer?
We discuss policy in a public meeting.
Is that a trade secret?
I think that's privileged information.
Oh, okay. Well, just curious of how that works. But
You're asking who we contact first?
Yes.
The consumer.
Yeah, the person who filed the complaint.
Okay.
We're going to contact them first, because there are times, and this happens frequently as well. They don't want us to contact the shop. They just want to do file a complaint so it's on record.
Okay.
We advise them there's not much we can do.
Well, the reason I was asking that, because if the customer had provided a lot of detailed information, maybe the representative doesn't contact the consumer first, they go right to the shop. But you're saying that you contact the consumer, to clarify the complaint. Okay.
Yes.
I got that. Once you're in there and you're having a discussion, and the rep feels like there's certain things that may have been non-compliant, then the rep makes some determinations there, whether it's going to be a station report, maybe some education, or maybe this is much more serious with a citation. They make that determination at that point. How does that work in terms of they go back to the BR office and then determine after they gathered the information, or do they do things on the spot?
Yeah, that one I'm not going to answer.
That's another trade secret.
Okay. That's internal discussions.
Okay. I get asked these questions all the time. That's why I'm asking you, right? Because I don't know the answers. I mean, okay, fair enough. If you can't answer it, I'm not going to push you. But let's just say after the encounter, the facility, will they get something in writing at that point, like a closure letter? Because you mentioned a closure letter the consumer gets. Does the shop get a closure letter, station report, nothing? What's the policy there?
The station, there's almost invariably a station inspection report generated when we visit with the ARD to memorialize the discussion. We ask the ARD to sign it, that they've received a copy of it. Not that they agree with the.
It's an acknowledgement.
It's an acknowledgement of receipt. It's not an agreement with the statements therein. And so that is predominantly the standard practice in all of our complaints, is to memorialize the discussion with the ARD. Because we need that record if, the example I gave earlier, we've told them 10 times to get an ARD signed, and now this is time 11. We need the memorialization that, hey, we did tell them 10 times. And so we need 10 station inspection reports that say we discussed this.
Do the station report, I've seen station reports, and they do generally a good job saying, hey, we've had a discussion about this, about a certain code section or regulation. Do the station reports ever say, hey, great job here, you did everything correctly? Do they ever say that? Or is it always something about discussion about a code section?
We're not, generally, the station inspection reports don't include findings, good or bad. It just memorializes the conversation that was had. So it's not going to say you did a great job, or nor is it going to say you did a horrible job. It doesn't discuss findings.
Okay, well, what if in the encounter the BR rep didn't encounter or have any discussion about any regulations or code sections?
They wouldn't be in the SIR.
They wouldn't be getting a station report.
No, they would get a station inspection report to memorialize the discussion, but it would just say, we talked about this complaint. ARD said this took place.
Okay. What if the shop gets nothing in writing? Should they worry? Trade secret again?
Ask that question after our next presentation.
Okay.
I'm not aware of, are there really situations where we haven't issued a station inspection report after having,
Yes.
that would be a very rare.
If they don't get a station inspection report, it's one, we didn't talk to anybody and no discussion was held.
Right.
Or there's an error possibly.
Or if the consumer withdrew the complaint, maybe? Because
there might be times where the consumer withdraws a complaint after talking with the rep.
Yeah.
And
the scenario that I mentioned in the email the other day, that was the scenario. We never got a station report. There was never a visit. There was a phone call, but then the consumer retracted the complaint because there was no complaint. Right. So we never.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to kind of finish up on that. So they generally get a station report, or, I know Patrick's going to talk about the citations.
Yeah.
they're going to get either one? Is it, sometimes they may not get anything, right? Is that what you're saying?
Like Pat was saying, in most cases, it's an anomaly if they do not get a space station inspection report.
Okay.
That memorializes
Yeah,
their conversation.
No.
As far as the citation, when and for what amount to issue a citation is determined at Bureau headquarters and
Outside of the complaint process.
outside of the complaint process.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking is I get these questions that, they didn't get anything. They didn't get a station report. They didn't get, a citation. And just sort of like, I'm kind of in limbo. And I usually just say, well, follow up with the rep, right? Make a call. Because they don't get anything in writing and they get nervous. Like, well, okay, are these guys looking at something, something much more serious? That's why they haven't given me anything.
Yeah,
and I say, well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know, but I wanted to at least confirm that generally, it sounds like most of the time there's something in writing. It's station report, citation, but it's not a letter that says we're closing this matter or anything like that. They don't get that. The consumer gets that.
There are closure letters.
There
to both parties.
There's a closure letter.
Yeah.
The shop
And
does get
a survey.
Okay, the shop does get a closure letter.
If we do a summary letter, which summarizes the complaint, what took place in the repair transaction and the outcome.
Yeah.
Both parties get an identical copy of the same thing.
Okay.
And to be, full disclosure to all parties involved.
Oh, I appreciate the clarification. I just went in because I get the questions. I'm like, well, am I going to get something in writing? Did I do anything wrong? And they're asking questions because they haven't. And I usually just say, if you haven't got anything in writing, please, follow up with the BR representative, right? I mean, that would be the advice. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for answering those process questions.
Before we go to Les, I wanted to just address something you kind of began your comments with the kind of this notion that there's a north and a south. Obviously there are, but the differences. When I first stepped into this role, I definitely would say that was a real issue for us. And over the years, we've worked really hard, Bill and others, to eliminate that or reduce any opportunities for those differences. We work very well together as a team. Tim and Jaime, who introduced themselves earlier, they go to each other's meetings when we're traveling around the state to the various field offices. We have 4 regional managers that are responsible for 3 offices each, or 2 in one case, because we're now down to 11 field offices. But those 4 regional managers work together very closely.
We have weekly meetings to discuss.
To make sure we're consistently applying our operations in whatever part of the state it might be an issue, whether it be in Los Angeles, San Diego, Sacramento, the Central Valley, Bay Area.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Les Weiser.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation.
Clean sweep.
I hadn't spoken yet, so I waited for you.
Okay, thank you.
It was special. I just had a quick question. There's mention of following up with the bar rep. Is there any place aside from reaching out to the investigator that a shop can go and check status, check any documents that might be pertinent to them on the website, just as the case is moving forward? Not necessarily confidential information, but just hey, pending review or resolved, or just some kind of update if we do have folks that are concerned about not receiving a communication. Maybe they didn't update their address as they should. I don't know. If there's a way for them to access that online, that could be beneficial.
That's a great suggestion. I think we've talked in discussions of modernization discussions that Deputy Chief Leak has talked about. When we were having those discussions initially, there was thought of maybe a portal where somebody could access that. It doesn't exist. It's not it's not in production or being pursued, but it is something that maybe we need to revisit, talk about it, see if there's a way to actually kind of have a status page for both consumers and for the ARD. It's challenging because, again, there's only limited information we can post on the web because once it's on the web, it's public.
Right, and that makes sense. But perhaps like behind a sign in or something like that for, you know.
Think about that one. Yeah. Obviously, I think you would have some concerns if we were to put that out on the website and then someone sees, oh, they have a complaint against them. I'm not going to that shop. And it might be for a very innocuous, fairly, in fact, a transaction that went fairly well. But we still looked into it. So that could have a double-edged sword effect.
Yeah, it would certainly have to have some sort of like sign in for
Yeah.
for folks to be able to see it, similar to like licensing, checking your licensing status.
I agree that you would, I think we would all want that. Additional questions, comments from advisory group members here? Yes, Bev Rice.
We have had this conversation before, and it was about an ARD portal where the shops could have their own portal, and then you could communicate to the shop directly through the portal, but it wasn't a open portal for the public. It was a specific ARD portal for communication from and to the ARD. We have talked about that in the past.
Had a thought on it, but it got a head shaking. No. All right. Yeah, we'll look at it. It's actually a good idea if we can do something along those lines. Let's open it up for advisory group members online or through the WebEx. If Tim's still there, I don't know if any others. Yeah, Tim's still there. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. We'll open it up for public comment for anyone here in the room on this agenda item. Gene, don't you have somewhere to be? You told me you have another meeting. I'm just teasing.
Thanks for letting my boss know.
You have another meeting with me.
Hi, Gene Lopez with Seidner's Collision Centers. Bill, thanks for the presentation and all the information you bring to us. And this may have been answered, but so 19,000 complaints. Let me put it this way. Seidner's has 13 locations, and we have a lot of Yelp reviews. And I'm happy to say that on average, we're somewhere north of 4.7 stars in our Yelp reviews. But every once in a while, we'll get a review where the consumer never even visited our shop. It was, a phone conversation, and they weren't happy with the outcome of that conversation. Or it was a photo estimate that we received photos of the damage to the vehicle, and we said, based on your photos, it'd be somewhere around $5,000 to repair your car. Oh, that's too much. I'm going to give you a 1-star review. It's happened, and it's happened recently. So I'm wondering, of these 19,000 complaints, if it's a complaint that is innocuous, as Chief said, is it still recorded as a complaint? And is that complaint now registered against the ARD?
Next question. No, yes. We have a duty to record all complaints received from the public, regardless of outcome.
Give it back. And
How about now? Oh, look at that. We each get our own.
okay. And so I think Dave did the math on the number of complaints, 19,000 versus the number of ARDs, 37,000, and that's 2 complaints per year per each ARD. But what if an ARD has 10 complaints? At what point, and I forget the term you used, is not educate them, but you discipline. Is that the term you used? Yeah, but there was also an enforcement or discipline. So at what point does that ARD, I mean, enforcement's something, but man, what are we doing with that shop that gets all these repeated complaints?
That's a process question that I can't, it really is that we complaints are used to monitor the industry. And yeah, that's all I can say.
Okay. So a complaint comes in and it is someone's beef.
You went over on your time.
Oh, holy cow. All right. Thanks a lot. Okay, so
I'm the one enforcing it. 2 minutes, you're done.
The enforcer. So yeah, as I walk away.
Responses though? Do they have?
I wonder
that time?
Should.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Okay. Oh,
I want my time back.
otherwise I would be, well, let me think about that.
Go ahead and ask a follow-up, please.
Yeah.
I don't want to end this abruptly without concluding it.
Yeah, so where was I at? We had this complaint and it was just somebody's beef. But now consumers can go and look at that and see that our company had a complaint.
No,
No?
that's not publicly posted.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And also, as you're walking away, I can respond to this one. That Yelp complaint, for our process, there has to be a repair transaction.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
There has to be, yeah.
Other comments from the public on this agenda item? Moderator, can we open up for public comment on this agenda item through the WebEx?
Yes, if any member would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please raise your hand using the feature at the bottom of the screen. For those of you that called into the meeting, you can raise your hand by pushing *3, and we'll go ahead and give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. I return the floor back to you, Chair.
Thank you. We've had a change of moderators, it appears. Is that Anthony? Thank you. All right, I think we're done with this agenda item and on a somewhat related, but again, keep in mind the complaint process and any decisions regarding an enforcement response, such as a citation, are completely independent of each other. So we'll do the next presentation. Thank you, Bill. The next presentation from Patrick Lutfi with our Enforcement Operations Branch to give us an update on the citation program, which has now 3 components to it, and even subcomponents to those 3 programs. I'll let Patrick describe or discuss each of those 3 programs within the overall citation program, and that was due to some recent regulations that added the ability to issue citations for Automotive Repair Act violations and some legislation that added some interesting features to that process.
All right, good morning. I'm getting right before 12 o'clock, so it is still morning.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared to talk for an hour, but I promise it won't take us to 1 o'clock. We go to the first program. As introduced and as introduced earlier at the onset of this meeting, my name is Patrick Lutfi. I'm the program manager over the Enforcement Operations Branch. I'm going to discuss our citation program in various detail today. So kind of overview of today's presentation. I'll go over some background information to the citations themselves. I'll discuss our approach to gaining compliance. Basically, where does the citation fall into the enforcement framework, right? Where does it lie within that process? I have some citation trends on a couple slides that'll show the various types of citations over a span of time. And then we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into the Automotive Repair Act citations, which is the newest type of citation that we have. Next slide, please. So first off, some background. There's a few slides on this. I'll start this off by saying citations, although it's hard to view it this way sometimes, they're not punitive in nature, okay? There's no actual discipline against a license. They're still an extension of the educational approach that we take with achieving compliance. They are intended to educate all licensees with the laws and regulations that are in place and that they have to adhere with. And when a violation has occurred, it's a mechanism for us to promote and require compliance moving forward. So to start out, we have, as Pat mentioned, there's three main areas, and BAR has statutory authority to address noncompliance in these three particular areas. First being smog check. Smog check is granted authority through the Health and Safety Code. Majority of all the outline of our citation authority, the program, how it works, how the fine tables, things like that is majority of that is in our Health and Safety Code. There's some minor stuff within our CC&Rs. The second one, licensing requirements. Specific to unlicensed activity, and this is one that kind of breaks out into two subcategories. We issue citations when a shop or a facility that is required to be registered with BAR does not have proper licensure to do so. And they're found operating, but it's in two categories. Someone who's outright unlicensed, does not have a registration, does not have a license to perform the duties that they're performing, and they're found doing so. And the second is delinquent citations is kind of an offshoot of an unlicensed activity in which a license has lapsed, it's no longer valid, and up until the point that through operation of law, that license cannot be renewed. They'd be issued through a delinquent citation. Most of that, it's still the same category of unlicensed activity, but more so for us to categorize the two for statistical purposes, for kind of monitoring and seeing how things are occurring in both those sides of the house is why those are split up. And the third one, which is the most recent that was introduced a few years ago now, is the Automotive Repair Act citations. And sorry, with the licensing requirements, those are authorities granted through Business Professions Code, as is with the Automotive Repair Act citations. Those are also granted through Business Profession Code. And then they're detailed out in some of our CC&R sections as to how each of those programs uniquely work. With the Automotive Repair Act citations, those are for any violation of the Automotive Repair Act. It applies to ARDs. It is also applicable to vehicle safety stations, technicians, et cetera, as those two programs lie within the Automotive Repair Act. Next slide, please. So citations when issued are always accompanied with an order of an abatement. In the previous slide, citations are a tool to promote and require compliance. The abatement order is basically advising the shop that the violation that was found or identified on that citation is expected that moving forward, you're to comply with that particular regulation. And if not, you can subject yourself to discipline by not adhering to that abatement order. And as it says there, it's to stop violating the law. With citations, although majority of them are issued without a fine, citations can be also issued with a fine. A monetary fine can be attached to those. However, they're typically for, if it's something straight out the gate immediately on a first offense, it's something that's pretty egregious. But typically there's multiple warnings in some capacity through education, through abatement order only, and with repeated violations, you can see citations with fines attached to them. With all citations, this discussion was just taking place with complaints. Those are not things that are displayed online. It's different with citations. When a citation becomes final and it's gone through its entire process, it's final and effective. All that information is posted on BAR's public website. As far as unlicensed citations, those will only be able to be found on BAR's public website because there's no license that it's attached to. It can't be looked up or referenced elsewhere. However, with citations that are issued against a license, not only do we post the citations that are issued on our enforcement actions page within our website, but it's also posted and tied to a license when you look, web license lookup. If you look up a station, an ARD, a smog check facility that has a citation against them, if it's affirmed and final and effective, there is information that's located there as well. And that's for transparency to the public. It's kind of a median, which I'll get into a little bit more later on how that works. Next slide, please. So with all three types of citations, recipients of those citations basically have the following options. One, we're looking to correct the issue and hopefully that's what they do moving forward and nothing else will come of it. But if they're in agreement with the citation, they don't have any disputes with it, they can correct it. If there's a fine, pay that fine, move along, continue conducting business. Nothing else is necessary on their end, as long as they do comply. There are two options. If they disagree with or wish to dispute some of the information that may be on that citation, there's two avenues for them to do so. And this is true with all three citations, although there's some nuances with the Automotive Repair Act ones that are slightly different. First option is an informal review of that citation. It could be looked at as an informal appeal, but it is an informal review. It's not an administrative hearing. There's no evidentiary, there's no evidence presented. There's no testimony. There's no, it's not as formal as an administrative hearing, and it's intended to reduce or in most cases eliminate costs. There's no need for representation. It's an opportunity for a recipient of a citation to appeal that citation, provide information to the Bureau in the platform that's available for that type of citation, in which the Bureau Chief or designee, which we do use a designee, listens to that information and then renders a decision to whether or not affirm, modify, or dismiss that citation. So that's option one. And again, no cost to any party involved in that. The next option is if they choose to, if someone is unhappy with an outcome of an informal appeal, or if they choose to go straight to an administrative hearing, they have that option as well. If a matter is appealed administratively or formally, that's when we deal with the Attorney General's office. Those matters are handed over. They represent BAR in defense of the citation, and typically that is where a respondent is obtaining counsel, although they can represent themselves. But now we're having court dates, going before an ALJ, the matter's heard, full evidentiary hearing. Both parties are allowed to present evidence and their side of the story, and then an ALJ will render a decision, and based off of that decision, the director will adopt or non-adopt that decision, and then it'll become effective. With the Automotive Repair Act citations, they have some additional provisions. A lot of it has to do with the informal and then some ability to prevent disclosure, but since that's in some further slides, I'll save it for there. Next slide, please. So where do citations fall into our enforcement framework? As Bill's mentioned many times and mentioned earlier, education is our first and will continue to be our preferred method of gaining compliance first. And it happens in many different ways, and it's through interactions with the stations. And I wasn't really gonna talk about this part, but since it kind of came up, it applies. You know, when, for the various reasons that a bar rep is brought into a facility, whether it's because of a consumer complaint, whether it's a tip, whatever it may be, some type of interaction, something that's come up that's drawn our attention to come in there, we are obligated to look at other things that are going on and to ensure that they're in compliance with the regulations that they're required to adhere to. So in all of those efforts, we attempt to educate. And I've drilled this into our reps when I was a supervisor, as a manager. It's always educate first, mediate, regulate last, right? It doesn't mean that we don't ever go straight to trying to regulate a matter if it's egregious enough, but we do try and exhaust as much as we can through that education process. And this is an extension of that. The citations truly are an extension of that education process. It's where we can't get it through the discussions, and it's a little bit more formalized education, but it also allows us to provide transparency to the public because, as everyone said, they would not like to see complaints posted online, right? Because one, there's a lot of complaints that really didn't have any merit. They may not have had the merit necessary to warrant posting something, but this is where when we're finding violations, especially if they're repetitive and compliance has not been gained, it gives us an opportunity to address that through education, but at the same time, provide transparency to the public so they're aware of what's going on. And that's how that kind of fits in there. And it's kind of that bridge gap between talking to someone and when we talk discipline, and I mentioned this in the beginning, and I'll say it again, I'll probably say it a couple more times, they're not punitive. And it's hard to look at it that way, especially if it comes with maybe a $5,000 fine or something. Tell me that's not punitive, right? I have to pay $5,000. But at the end of the day, we're not taking an action against your license. We're not taking it away. We're not preventing you from continuing to conduct business. It is just, it's a mechanism, again, to educate the shop to try and get them to comply. And that's why it talks here being an extension of our educational process. And in most instances, well, in rare instances, are they issued immediately out the gate. It is typically after multiple attempts of gaining compliance. Dave, you had mentioned, having sat on our panel, we do have some instances where someone disagrees with our regulations and they outright decline. Records request is a common one. They refuse to provide records because they don't agree with the fact that we have authority to request such records. In such case, they're not even willing to comply, so we may go straight to a citation. And even in those instances, they're typically still an abatement order to try and get them to understand that it is a requirement. However, majority of these instances, they do happen after multiple conversations, whether it's that 10 complaints or whatever it may be, where we're not seeing the compliance even though we've tried to gain it multiple times. So it does form as, it is a formal notice. As I said, it provides a structural educational step between those conversations and outright just going after a license. which is why it says here in that last bullet is that revocation or any similar action of us trying to take an action, it's always the last step in that process, right? Again, unless our first interaction is egregious enough, fraud, things of that nature, nothing says we can't skip a step, but it is it's progressive in nature in most cases. Next slide, please. So I got a few tables here or line graphs of trends of the various types of citations I was talking about. This is over a 10-year span. The first two being delinquent and unlicensed activity. Again, those are both under the unlicensed. They started in I had these written down and I forgot to bring it. I believe we started issuing delinquent UT citations. It was back in 2013-ish, somewhere around there. 2013, 2014 is when we started those. As we were kind of figuring that out and getting our feet under us, you could see that there was probably a spike somewhere up there around 16, 17. But if you look at all of these tables, and I'll go through each one first, Smog Check Program and the last one, Automotive Repair Act. In 2020, there was a huge event that kind of slowed down operations. We had to rethink some processes and we did see a huge dip in some productivity due to limitations of what we could do. So that explains some of that, but there was a dip and you could see that gradually over some time, they did go back up to what is probably more of a normal number that we typically see with those delinquent and unlicensed citations, somewhere around that. I believe it's like 200-300 with delinquent, if I can read this correctly, and somewhere around that, like 600 to 700 in unlicensed is kind of a steady number that we see typically with those types of citations. With the smog check, a couple things happened in 2018 aside from the whole 2020 scenario. And back in 2018, internally, we had some discussions. There was a lot of things that changed with smog check. We started having cert blocking taking place. There was a lot of other things to address the real egregious behavior. And we felt internally that smog check couldn't consume all of our enforcement time, and we had to redirect sources to look elsewhere on how to address other types of enforcement. So that kind of contributed to a little bit of things aside from the 2020 deal. But, since then we've dealt with some recruitment challenges. We've dealt with various things. We've tried to implement and put a lot of provisions in place. We have an entire new branch now that's tailored specifically to investigations only and various things. So I think some of those upticks that we've seen there's a lot of concerns that we were going to come out the gate and issue hundreds and thousands of these things. We haven't even issued thousands of them to date. However, that first year we did issue 40. The second year went up to 58. And although that says, I think it's 97, I double checked. We've already surpassed 100 for this fiscal year, taking into consideration that that's still less than 3 months. That's up through the third quarter, the end of the third quarter. It doesn't include the fourth quarter. So we did surpass that. Next slide. The last one is, this is just total citations issued as a whole combination of all. You can kind of see that consistent swing there, hovering somewhere around that, probably somewhere around 11, 12, 1,300 is kind of a common number of citations for us. And we'll probably, based on the fact that there's still a quarter left, I believe we're projected to hit that kind of same number. So some consistency there. Next slide, please. So the next few slides are going into the Automotive Repair Act citations themselves. So it became effective back July 1 of 2023 is when bar regulations were adopted. And what did those regulations bring upon us? Three major things, right? The citation program itself for automotive repair citations. So we put that whole process together, tilted that program up on how that worked. And it came with two nuances that are a little different than the rest of the citations. First one being the 3-member panel. So with the appeal process, like I mentioned before, heard for the other two types of citations in an informal appeal, informal review, they're heard before they're a one-on-one meeting with the bureau chief or designee, where with the Automotive Repair Act citations, they're actually held before a 3-member panel that's subject to the same Bagley-Keene requirements that this meeting we're in here today. It's put forth online, public can attend, and that 3-member panel consists of a member from the public, a member from the industry, and a member from BAR that's outside of enforcement. We do have bureau staff that conduct that conference. They put it on. They're the ones that coordinate and do everything. But just like with the informal hearings, or the informal review for the non-Automotive Repair Act, it's not an evidentiary hearing. We're not going to come in and give testimony and evidence and all that, but it gives an opportunity for the recipient of the citation to present why they feel that citation was issued potentially in error, why it should be modified or dismissed. The panel hears what they have to say, they deliberate in a closed session, and then through that deliberation, they come up with a recommendation. That recommendation is provided to the bureau chief, and again, a bureau chief or designee, and then a decision is rendered to either uphold, modify, or dismiss such citations. And then the last piece that is the nuance to this, or the third component that was introduced with those regulations, is remedial training. So remedial training is training specific to the laws and regulations. We have approved providers. It has to go through an approved provider process. It's posted online. We do have, it's 2-in-1 training currently as of right now. But the way that it works is someone that receives a citation, other than there's three that don't qualify: fraud, gross negligence, and false misleading in relation to the issuance of a vehicle safety certificate. Other than those 3 violations, and as long as you have not had or taken remedial training to prevent disclosure in the last 18 months, recipient of a citation can take that remedial training, and upon successful completion within a time frame that's allowed it for them to take it, it will prevent disclosure of that citation from being posted online. And I'll bring this up because, and if it's a question later, we can talk about it again. I was told a few times that there's some confusion with remedial training as to when can a recipient take that in that process. They do not have to decide up front that remedial training is going to be taken. If they choose to go through the informal formal appeal process up and until that citation is going to become effective, they can still request and take that remedial training. So if they wish to appeal it informally, unhappy with it, let's say hypothetically as affirmed, they're unhappy with that, they go through the formal process, it gets upheld and affirmed, now it's done, they can still take that remedial training as a last effort to prevent that disclosure, as long as they meet the criteria as defined. So again, this gives us a way that this was a huge gap for us when it comes to citations, because there was lots of conversations in the past about grading systems for stations. There's a lot of things that were tossed out as how do we get more information out to the public, rather than, oh, you took their license away, it's too late, right? So how can we advise them in the middle where someone is not complying? And this is the tool that helped us get there. We never had that before with ARD specific violations. It was always smog check and with our unlicensed activity. So with this introduction, it's given us an ability to be transparent with the public and get that information out there to protect consumers. And the last slide there, with the 100 or so that we've issued now, I believe it's only 5 or 6 of them have had a monetary fine attached to them. And one was for an egregious reason, and the others, if I recall correctly, was because of repeated offenses, or there were multiple violations after repeated attempts of gaining compliance as well. So not only were there multiple conversations, but then after multiple conversations, there were still multiple violations of that same section that resulted in an elevated monetary citation. Next slide, please. So here's some statistics on it, again, specific to the automotive repair act citations that were on that table. Issued so far, although this has increased, I'll stick with these numbers because I don't know the specific number. It was 193 when this was generated a couple weeks ago. 96 of those were issued from July 1st of 2023 up until June 30th, the beginning of this fiscal year. And so far this fiscal year, when these numbers were ran, which again, we'll stick with that as 3 full quarters, July 1 through March 31st was 97. So we had already surpassed the first 2 years by 1 citation in that time frame. Of those, kind of breaking it down, of those 193 citations, 23 requested an informal review and were heard before the panel. I think we had 5 or 6 citation conferences for these citations. So those 23 were heard across 6 different ones. Of those 23, 1 was withdrawn prior to the conference. They decided to withdraw their informal appeal. Guess I could give an update of the 3 pending. Yeah, I think it's safe to give. So it was 17 affirmed. 2 of those pending have since been heard prior to these numbers being turned in. So it's now 19 affirmed. 1 has been modified, 1 was dismissed, and 1 is still pending for a future conference that we're still coordinating a date and time and all the logistics of. The 1 modified was a citation that was one that did have a dollar amount tied to it. It had a fine, and after the information that was presented, it was decided that, or it was recommended that the citation be modified, and the modification was that the penalty was reduced. And then the one dismissal is a dismissal. It was recommended that the citation be dismissed, and based on the information provided to the panel, that's what they voted on. That's what was presented to designee, and it resulted in such. Of all the citations, I did not break it down if those, I believe all 4 went through the informal review, but it could be that one of them did not. But of all the citations received, we have so far received a request for 4 formal appeals through before an administrative law judge, of which 1 was withdrawn prior to hearing. 2 have gone to hearing. 1 is still pending a hearing date. We have not heard back yet. It's recent. And of the 2 that were affirmed, 1 actually resulted in being affirmed because the respondent failed to show to court. That's a default. They defaulted on that matter. And the second one was actually heard before a judge. It was one that had to do with the records request and maintaining of records. They neglected to maintain the records for the 3 years. They claimed that they had gotten damaged in some sort of fashion, and the judge decided that that was still a failure to maintain records for the required time that they had to. Both of those have gone before the director and affirmed. They've been adopted and affirmed, so they're effective. Next slide, please. So remedial training statistics, went into this a little bit. Of the 193 citations, and that's what this 188 is, 188 of them were eligible to take remedial training. Remember, I had said there's a few reasons they can't take it, and that's further down. But so of the 188 that were eligible, 67 of them requested to take the remedial training to prevent disclosure. And then that breaks it down further. So of those 67, 34 of them have successfully completed that training, provided proof to us, and prevented disclosure of those citations. 27 of those failed to ever take the training. They requested it, never took it, never provided us back with anything. And in all fairness, we do double check, even though they're required to send it to us, we do still kind of follow behind them and check to see if they took it to give the benefit.
I'll wait till you're finished, but I have a question on that, so thank you.
And then we still, at that time, had 6 pending. So they do have a time frame in which they can take the training, and they have to fulfill it within that time frame. There were 6 of those that were still pending at the time that these numbers were ran. And then 121 of those 188 never requested. They did not request to take the training. They took the citation and done, moved on with it. So again, back to the 193 total, there's 5 that were not eligible for remedial training, of which 4 of them were for gross negligence violations. I believe all of them had something to do with a wheel. I believe all 4 of them had something to do with not securing a wheel and it actually falling off of a vehicle. So those 4 were not eligible. All 4 of them.
All 4 are the same?
4 was either over tightening, under tightening, stripping bolt. They all had to do with wheels.
Wow.
So it was all gross negligence in that avenue. All 4 of those were not eligible. And then there was one that took the training and was not eligible to take it because they've actually received multiple citations in a short span of time, and they were not eligible to take it on that second one because it was within the 18 months. Do you have a question now or wait till the end?
I'll wait till you get to the end.
Last slide, just some quick conclusions. I'll reiterate one more time. Again, citations are not punitive. I'll keep drilling it home. It is a mechanism for us to continue to educate the industry on where they are falling short with compliance and what they need to do to correct that. We've been very consistent in that approach to be progressive in our disciplinary approach, and we'll continue to do so. I think that's for the foreseeable future. I don't see that changing. We'll continue to do so. And as far as the automotive practice citations, one thing they have slowly increased from inception. I think that's natural to see, especially with the increasing number of complaints and things. The more interactions that we have, the more attempts that we take at educating stations and facilities, I think it's only natural to see that some of these citations will continue to increase. It's showing the effectiveness of the program, it's showing the effectiveness of our efforts. And the fact that there's 20,000 there are 20,000 or close to, we're going to hit close to 20, it's over 19,000 complaints to still only have that volume of citations. And even if you look at the number of disciplinary actions that we take, again, it's still smaller and smaller percentages as you go up the disciplinary process to the total volume of stations that we have out there. And I believe that's the end of it.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I had a question going back a slide. Let's see, the 27 where they failed to complete, does that mean then the citation gets posted?
Yes, so if they fail to take the training, and when I say failed to complete, none of them took it and failed. That they took I just want to clarify that too. It's not that they took it and failed some exam or something.
No.
They never took it. So
They
by
didn't.
not taking it, by default, if they don't take it within the timeframe, yes, it posts.
It does post.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure on that. Okay. Let's open it up for questions from the advisory group members. Les Weiser.
I thank you for that. I just have a question around the class, and maybe this is my failure to edify myself, but is it a live class that's offered, like, or is it like a virtual, like pre-recorded? You know, like we have to take sexual harassment classes every 2 years, and it's usually like a pre-recorded program. You take a test at the end of it. What does the class look like?
So it's very similar to that, like the sexual harassment style trainings in which it hits certain milestones with questions to keep the learner engaged. It is online, 100% pre-recorded, very similar in that fashion. And at the end, yes, there's questions throughout that they have to pass, and then there's a series of questions at the end that they also have to answer and respond to.
So it's not a matter of availability of the course. It sounds like it's just readily available. It's just a matter of whether they choose to actually go through the process of taking it.
The course is available 24 hours throughout that day whenever they want to take it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions, comments? Jack Maladona.
Yeah, no, that was a great presentation, a lot of detail. Thank you, Patrick. Remind me how long they have after they lose the appeal to take the training. There's a deadline, right? Because I've had some people ask me to say, oh, can I take the training? I said, well, when did the citation, when was it final? Oh, it was about 6 months ago. Can't.
6 months is too late. I'm stuck on the various days. It's either 60 or 90 days. It's one of those two. I want to say they have the 60 days to take the training. That's what sounds right to me.
Okay. I didn't remember.
And that's all disclosed in our paper work that's sent to the respondent.
Yeah, anytime a citation is issued, it's not just a citation, good luck figure this out on your own. It does come with information and explains all of their various options on how they can proceed. It explains the remedial training to them, the timeframes in which they could take it. It gives the timeframes in which they have to submit request for an informal or formal appeal. There are some disclosure statements, and we've had these, we can always revisit some of those documents to make sure they're as clear as possible. If we turn it into a 20-page document, I
You don't want to do
guarantee
that.
no one's going to read it, and they're going to just call us with questions. So we do try to keep it simple.
Yeah.
We put footnotes on, there's remittance forms for just about every option that they want to take, and there's clear information on each of those too. That for remedial training, for example, it says I believe if I remember correctly on the bottom of the document, if you are appealing this matter, hold off, this is not required to submit at this point. So we do try to give as much information to a recipient of a citation as possible. And we do field a lot of questions and respond to them as well. We can and do respond to questions that they have about what their options are and rights are with those. But they got to be timely. Unfortunately, if you're going to wait 6, 7, 8 months, a year to ask me the question, then you've forfeited any opportunity for me to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions, comments? Matt Webb.
Yeah, so since the new process that went into effect in 2023, so do you guys feel good about it? I mean, does it seem like it's productive? You've had 17 or 23 informal reviews. Has that gone like as expected, or is there other tweaks in that program that you think need to take place, or is it productive, I guess, is my question.
As expected, I guess, into what regard?
Well, getting the results from it that you thought you would get, meaning, so on the 23 informal reviews, obviously 17 were affirmed, 1 modified, 1 dismissed, 3 pending. So has that been productive, that whole process?
As a whole, I think our enforcement process, yes. We're very fortunate. There's a lot of boards and bureaus that are very small in numbers, and they don't have the luxury of having an entire unit dedicated to oversight of that type of stuff. So the branch that I oversee, what we specifically do is review, basically audit all the requests for. We're kind of auditing the end result of a request to issue a citation, a request to proceed with an accusation of some form. It's not a rep walking in to the station, finding something, and here's your citation and walking away. We have a very thorough vetting process of everything that gets issued. So we do look at everything, make sure that there's tangible evidence to support the citations. To see where it's kind of landed with the affirmed, if we didn't have that type of review process in place, those numbers would probably be significantly different because it's not being looked at by multiple individuals and going through, multiple levels of review before things are issued and served out there.
Sure.
Did we meet, not just is the citation there, but is it actually warranted to proceed with a citation, or is it more appropriate to have addressed it through some lower level of education, not the citation yet? Or is this too egregious and we should actually be considering doing something else? And we have made recommendations both ways to do something less or more stringent based on the evidence that's presented to us through our unit.
Excellent. Thank you.
I will say in a different way, or another response to it is we did not anticipate the level of workload involved in implementing the informal citation conference when that bill was going through the process. I think we underestimated what would be expected of the Bureau's support of that operation. So they are time consuming. We've had to put together a whole new unit. Where's the supervisor of that unit? Is she still in the room?
She probably ran over.
She ran. Yeah, she was worried I'd call her up to the table. Anyway, we had to form an entire group to support this operation. So it's a lot of resources and time spent, and maybe you can elaborate on that because it's under your branch.
Yes, it's put a significant strain on us with the number of staffing that we have and the level of effort to put all of this together and on. It has put a strain on the staff, and I'm grateful for them for sticking it out with me because it's gone through a significant amount of change as well. It's evolved from day one to where it is today, and we still don't have it ironed out perfectly, but the fact, I think presenting evidence in a manner and determining whether the citation itself, I'm not too concerned about. That is a process, although it's now for different violations, is a process that's tried and true. We understand that process. We've been doing it for a long time. It's just for different sections of law. It's no different than what we would do pursuing administrative actions. It's at lower levels. Right? It's through the citation educational process. So that part's not too bad, but yes, to facilitate and all the logistics and moving pieces involved with that, I don't want to say it was a nightmare. Everyone always asks me how it's going. Hey, living the dream, right? Yeah. So are still types of dreams, but at the end of the day, they've been successful regardless of the outcome of being affirmed, modified, or dismissed. They've been successful each time that they've gone on. We've taken valuable feedback from the panel members we take feedback from the panel members that sit on it, and we've been trying to improve that process to make it better for everybody that's involved, but especially for the recipient of that citation as well, to give them a platform to where it's not just, again, throw them to the wolves, figure it out on your own. You're here, can't figure it out. Sorry, have a nice day. We do try to, through one of our representatives, Cause, who is the one that's been presenting all of these, does a really good job of trying to keep them on track and understand why they're there and explain to them so that they do benefit to the maximum of what the intent of that conference is. So as a whole, regardless of the strain that it's put on us, that's what we're here to do. I think all in all, it's successful. It's been successfully administered so far. I like to believe that, not just because it's my unit, but because of the hard work the staff's been putting in to make it successful. And I do see that as the volume will naturally probably increase over time, we're going to continue to have to evolve with that and look at what modifications do we have to put in place to continue with that success. Because only having done 6 conferences in that span of time, although that's been taxing, if that starts to become something that we have to start putting on a weekly, multiple times a month or even weekly, that's going to start to become even more so taxing. But we'll embrace it, we'll take it on, and we'll continue to do what we have to do to continue with the success that we've seen so far.
Additional, Dave Kusa, one of our informal informal conference participants.
Yes, thanks, Pat. Yeah, so Patrick, thank you. And I would agree that the program has improved, gotten better over time. I think one of the main frustrations that we were all surprised by was having to conform with the meeting laws, right? So frustration. So two issues from the panel point, and we've gotten better at it, is because of the laws, you're not allowed to send us information beforehand, right? Because otherwise that's become public information, right? So that gets a little difficult of having to review the citation or the complaint in the moment rather than having, 10 or 15 minutes to read through it and understand it a little bit better, which we've gotten better at that. And then I think, Cost is doing a great job because those first couple of meetings were arduous because we heard about the customer interaction, which wasn't the reason for the citation, right? So, maybe a little bit better. The initial training, the introductory training was great. I'm still a little not sure how far I can go with questions I would have. I talked to Jack about it a little bit, so got his take on it of, this should be fine, right? But I'm not sure every other panel member truly understands that you can ask questions, right? We're not getting evidence, right? We're not saying, hey, show me some paperwork or whatever, but the one that, the paperwork that was damaged, I was on that, so nobody ever we didn't ask any real good questions, I don't think, on that one, right? Clearly it went the next step and all those questions were asked. And so, but yeah, so maybe more guidelines on what we can ask as panel members.
Duly noted. I think we're probably due for some follow-up training, and that might be a good idea to bring up some of those types of topics.
But otherwise, from the industry standpoint, I'm happy. Then nobody's ever complained to me that it's a bad idea. I think it's a great idea because we fought hard to get it, so we should keep it going. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for being a member of our panel. It's on several occasions, I believe. 3 now. 3? Okay, good. Yeah. Bud Rice.
Thank you, Patrick. Very, very nice presentation. I've been in a couple of these as well. What I came away with was, in many of the cases, they didn't know why they were there. And it was like you were trying to educate them about what the process was, why they're there, what we're talking about. And it took a while to get them to understand what the whole purpose of the thing was. So I remember going, this guy doesn't even know why he's sitting in here. I mean, that was going on in my head when the other guy that I heard wanted to argue about something that had nothing to do with what this citation thing was about. So somehow I think you got to make sure you're keeping it on target and on track for what the purpose is, and then making sure people know before they show up what the idea and what the purpose is and what the outcomes are trying to be. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Fine.
I was just going to say, I think that was it was a known issue that we were going to walk into, but how do you navigate that when it's open to the public without disclosing too much information? Because they can still potentially prevent disclosure of those citations, so we can't give out too much information, and it's not a formal hearing. So when recipients of a citation previously with unlicensed, delinquent, and smog check, even when we would hold those informal reviews with them, it's the same scenario, right? When you're not having legal representation and they're trying to figure out how to navigate through that, when it's a one-on-one situation, it's a lot easier to immediately rectify that issue and explain to them and really go in depth with it without worrying of any disclosure to anyone. But in that forum, there's a lot of guardrails that have been put up that we're trying to stay within. And we have, even in the more recent ones now, tried to add to some of the language that, when they're being brought up and asked to speak, and if they do go off, we allow them to speak, but we still correct them to advise them and remind them why they're there, what's the purpose of what we're there. We're doing the best that we can, again, without disclosing beyond what we're allowed to disclose in that setting. But, I value the feedback, and it's the same thing we've heard. We're trying to get better at that, and we'll continue to try and improve that process. But I do think from day one to the most recent one that we've held, it's improved vastly.
All right, let's move on to advisory group members on the WebEx platform. Seeing none, we'll move to public comments here in the room on this agenda item. Gene Lopez, come on up.
Thanks. Hi, Gene Lopez with Sidner's Collision Center. The remedial training online, does it change from industry to industry? So if it's a transmission citation or a body shop citation or a smog citation, is it all the same remedial training?
Yeah.
So a couple things.
There
we go. The remedial training is not applicable to smog check. It's specific to violations of the automotive repair act. So the automotive repair act citations are the only ones that they can take the training for, first of all. And no, it's not tailored to the specific violations or the types of repairs that facility is doing. It's generalized overview of all the laws and regulations. It goes over estimates, invoices, the entire gamut of what applies across the board.
Bilingual?
That I don't think is an option at this point.
Thanks.
The remedial training is through third-party providers, and I don't believe there's a bilingual option. And we just have one that has been, accepted by us as a fitting the requirements for remedial training. Obviously, other remedial training providers can be accepted by the Bureau or have their programs accepted by the Bureau. Let's go on for any other public comments here in the room. Not seeing any hands raised, so we'll go moderator for public comments via the WebEx platform.
Hi, this is the moderator. If you would like to make a comment, you may look for the raise hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And if you are a public member, joined us by call-in, you can press *3 to raise your hand. You'll have 2 minutes with a 30-second warning to make your comment. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. I see no raised hands. I return the floor back to you, Chair.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sabina. Thank you, Patrick. I think that was a really good presentation with a lot of interest, obviously, from everyone. We'll continue to bring you back over time to see how those numbers have changed, perhaps. Maybe more of a statistics report, or maybe that could be incorporated into one of the handouts. That might be a better way, because once you've given the details of how the programs work, it's now just reporting statistics. Okay, let's move on with our next agenda item or items. Speaking of which, we have our quarterly statistics updates for our enforcement program and our licensing program, and we will hold these two agenda items at the same time. They are handouts only. There's no presentation to come with it. Is there any comments from advisory group members on those handouts? They were presented or made available over 10 days before the meeting today.
Pat, I had one comment.
Yeah. On which presentation or which handout?
On the licensing.
The licensing one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't remember this from previous meetings looking at this, but it seems like on the backside, the PSI examination pass rate seems really, really low. Like 65% of people are failing that are taking these tests.
This is on the licensing. What'd you say?
On
the licensing
statistics. Yeah, on the page 2, bottom, the examination pass rates. Seems.
Show me again. Show me where. Oh, 65. Yeah, I'm not.
Kind of concerning. But
okay. Yeah, I don't know if that's
like
historically that's about the pass rate for these 3 exams. Obviously, vehicle safety systems technician is a new license. I don't know. I don't have a comment on it, or we'll take a look at it though.
Yeah, I thought maybe the
get
test
back
changed or something
at another meeting as to any observations or reasons for that, if it's lower than historical or about the same. Okay.
Just a comment.
No, I'm glad you raised that. Anything else on those 2 handouts? Let's go to public comment on the 2 handouts. Anyone in the room? No. Moderator, can we have this is public comment for agenda items 8 and 9, the two handouts, enforcement statistics and licensing statistics.
Hi, this is the moderator. If you would like to make a comment on agenda items 8 and 9, please click on the raise hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And if you are on a public member, you joined us from call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. If you're on a mobile device, the hand icon may be behind 3 dots, other options. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. See no comments, I return the floor back to you.
All right, thank you, moderator. We'll close those two items out and we'll move to agenda item number 10, public comment on items not on the agenda. Do we have any Bar Advisory Group members? Okay, Dave Kusa?
Thank you, Pat. Two, if I could. First, I wanted to thank Denise Cunningham taking the show on the road with the CAP program updates. We've had a number of our ASCCH, well, I don't know how many, but she did one online for us, which was great. Visited our chapter, and then I know visited a couple other chapters so far. So I just wanted to thank Bar for making that available and getting everybody up to date on what's going on with CAP. And then Member Rory Balmer asked the question that before you print the VIR, the vehicle inspection report on the smog check, it says you can keep it electronically, but you have to have a paper copy as well. And given that it's over 10 million pieces of paper a year, would it be possible to just store that electronically for the shop rather than having to have a hard copy stashed away someplace for however many years you have to keep it, 3 years? So if we could look at that regulation and maybe modify that to make that an option, I think it'd be a good idea.
So is that listed that way is it stated on the VIR?
Yeah, apparently there's a pop-up window, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. In this day of the electronic age, I don't know why that wouldn't be possible, but maybe someone will educate me as to why. But yeah, we'll take a look at that. Thank you, Rory, for that. Okay, additional public comment for items not on the agenda. Yes, Bud Rice.
Hi, Bud Rice, Kelly, BC. I heard you say a minute ago you're 30 years in the 30 years now. Okay, so I started in 76. So you got to go 76, 86, 96, 2006, 2016, 2026. And during that time, I will tell you that my interaction with Bar has been up and down, just like a lot of other things, right? Up and down. And I remember there was a duration where Bar was kind of the mindset of we're with enforcement, we're here to enforce. And it was just this hammering, banging that was going on constantly. Okay. Today, even in terms of, Bill and Patrick and Holly, you guys doing your presentations, I think we've come to the realization and where Bar is working with industry to try to make sure that we can provide good services to consumers. We call them customers, you guys call them consumers, but working together to be able to provide good service to customers is really the hallmark, I think, of a good organization and a good structure. So I wanted to pat you on the back there. Very nicely done.
Thank you very much, Bud, for those comments. I couldn't agree more with you about the relationship and how far we've come in how many years was that? 50? I was trying to count the. Yeah, it's still around, huh? Yeah. I will say this forum, this advisory group forum has been very instrumental in that development or that progression over the years. I think that's really served all of us, especially the Bureau, very well. I know we attended a meeting not too long ago at the New Motor Vehicle Board, and there was representatives from DMV and California Air Resources Board and Bar, and your association, Anthony Bento, was there trumpeting the advisory group and really advocating for similar forums with those other bodies. So I think that's really helped us as an organization. So thank you for participating in it. What else do we have as far as, yes, Wiser, yes.
Yeah, I can just kind of echo Bud's comments that I haven't been in the industry for 50 years. But, you know, coming from the tech side of things and dealing with bar on the other side of the world here, and then coming into the legal and regulatory field, and that's my job, is dealing with California agencies and regulatory bodies. And I can say that in my shorter experience, BAR has been one of the best to work with because of boards like this, like the advisory board. And we have encouraged other agencies to take on that sort of structure. We'll keep you posted on how well that works out. But
please do. If we start getting phone calls from some of these other agencies, we'll know why.
Yeah, you start getting.
What are you doing?
Your fellow agents.
How do you do this?
But thank you for your work. Yeah.
Thanks for the comments. Oh yeah, Clay Leak, our deputy chief.
Thank you. Just real quick, the question around the pass rate kind of led me to thinking, would a presentation on the whole examination process in terms of how the questions are developed, the subject matter experts, because there's a lot of different players that play a role in that, would that be something of interest for a future BAG meeting?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to take advantage because oftentimes we're looking for presentation topics and forget these things. Now it's on Zach to track this particular one. Not on this. Thank you.
Something else. Zach's fault again.
Enthusiastic. You guys see that look? Whoa.
It's like, thanks, Clay.
That's right. All of that stuff.
Thanks, Clay. Zach, thanks you too. Additional comments here in the room? Facilitator, if we could open it up for public comment for items not on the agenda.
Hi, this is a moderator. If you would like to make a comment, items that are not on the agenda, you can click on the raise hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And if you're a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. I do see a raised hand. Christina, you're going to be, we are sending you an unmute yourself request. Please click on that to make your comment. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me. And thank you guys. Miss you fellas. I'm out sick today. Christina Cooper in 352 Innovation. First, I'd like to make a comment that echoing what Bud was saying, that the advisory meeting was just a brilliant idea, and I really want to give kudos to the chief, Patrick, for being your professionalism and welcomeism, just being so welcome to people coming up that are already, nervous about speaking in public, but, being facing you guys is kudos to that, and I think you have done a fantastic job in making everyone feel welcome to come up and speak. So my other comment was more like just something to kind of think on, zero emission powertrain conversions. I think that's going to be a big market pretty soon. I'm putting together resources to try to help reduce a shop's liability as they, get into that market. But as that field develops, kits are going to become available and it's going to move forward. But I just wanted to open it up that I'd be happy to work with you guys to help put together something to make sure that it's safe for the consumers, the shops, for everybody, and because that's going to be a big deal pretty soon. So thank you. Christina Cooper in 352 Innovation.
Thank you, Christina. Anyone else, moderator?
I see no other comments. I turn the floor back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, that appears all of the agenda items that require a presentation or comments. Now we will share an informational item about our next Bar Advisory Group meeting, which will be the third quarter meeting. Is that right? First, second, third quarter. Yeah, Thursday, July 30th, 2026, and it is currently scheduled for this room, but please always pay attention to the final notice that gets sent out at least 10 days before the meeting. Sometimes we get bumped from a room and have to seek other locations, but we're currently slated to be in this room on Thursday, July 30th. Again, it'll be from 9:30 to 1 o'clock or until close of business, which in this case looks like we're going to get out a little early today. And then sometimes that includes a post-meeting regulatory workshop. We haven't had one of those in a while, but we'll take a look at whether any regulations are at the stage at which a regulatory workshop would behoove all of us to have that interaction. So thank you all for attending the meeting today. That was an excellent meeting, great presentations. Thank you to all of our presenters. Thank you to the advisory group members for being here, both in person and remotely. Thank you to our staff who support this, both at the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Bureau of Automotive Repair. There's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes into putting one of these together. I can't thank you enough for all the work you do to make that happen. So enjoy the rest of your spring and the months into the summer. Hopefully we can stay with some cooler weather for a little bit longer. I really like that. So anyway, enjoy your rest of your week and the rest of your months up until our next meeting on July 30th.
Thank you.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
That's what it says on it's the top one. It's teeny tiny, but